The first page is like all my favorite quotes, and I write them down every year, and I hardly add to them. I never take away. I've maybe added one since I've never had a journal. Buddha, Carl Jung, Napoleon Hill, Nietzsche, Musashi, and Viktor Frankl, the ones that make it, and Lao Tzu.
What's Frankl's, can I ask?
Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way.
Yes, I love that one.
Yes, that's a good one. My favorite one's Musashi. There is nothing outside of you, outside of yourself, that can enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, smarter. Everything is within. Everything exists. That's probably my favorite quote of all time.
I don't know if I agree with that one.
You got to dig into it. Yeah. Well, maybe we will. I don't know. I'll focus on this journal. Then the second page is the year that I'm in. And then I have like, not so much goals. I have standards, I guess, of like things that I want to do. So like, here's my triangle of manhood: lead and protect, communicate, speak, connect, open, present, able, pray in the middle, stuff like that. And then you go on, you got the highlights, 2024, 2023. This one goes all the way back to 2020. I usually have a New Year's Eve page. And then after that, what I've been doing is, I guess I didn't do it for January, but I'll take one page and I write January, the month at the top of the page. And then I kind of write down what I'd like to focus on that month, what I need to get done, maybe a quote that like give it theme for the month. And then I will put a little sticker on that day, on that page, and I'll write, January. And then everything up to that is the color of that sticker, so blue. So, and then when February rolls around, then I'll do it again. I'll take a whole page, I'll write February. I'll write down, like I've been writing my weight down so I could track that. I've been writing down like, well, for February, I had January to reflect on. So I had a little reflection spot, another quote, things like that. And then I'll put like a red sticker. And then everything after that has a red sticker. And that's like,
so every page would have a red sticker?
No, just the month page. But I could see the red. I can go to it, and then I know everything from this red sticker to this purple sticker is February.
Right. Okay.
And I do write the date down most of the time. But that way, because before it's just a journal, like, every page is who knows what. But now I can directly go to it, I can see it, and say, that's February. What happened in February 2025? So, anyway.
One thing I did this year?
What?
Is I numbered the pages. I just went through and I numbered the pages, because usually I'll dog ear a really good one that I want to go back to. And so, I don't know. That would be kind of an idea. Leave a page at the front, and you could say, January is page such and such to page such and such. And then
I think Grandma did that with something that she was showing me. She had maybe it was just the dates, where she just had like a document of these dates.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was like so-and-so came over that day.
Yes.
Some of it was like super important, like we signed the paper.
Right.
And some of it was like Earl came for coffee, something that, not that it's not important, but with numbering the pages of a journal, I always thought that way you could track it better. And I'm pretty sure, remember when we switched books? I think I don't remember what I made you read. Probably something about psychedelics.
Oh, yeah.
And you made me the hurry up, quiet down, the art of hurry. What is it? What was it called?
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the book now.
Something about
quietness or
it was something about slowing down life and everything. And it was a Christian perspective, but it was a really good book, actually. But I think he mentioned numbering the pages and then having a table of contents in the front. So then, it would take a lot of time.
It would take a lot of time.
Maybe you could use AI to help you with that. But then have a table of contents, not page by page, but like just like your major, like on page 43, I wrote a prayer about Casey or something, on page 52, something like that. But anyway, journal talk. Welcome to SciFi And Friends podcast. I have a very special guest today, as you know. my beloved and beautiful mother, Leslie Seifert. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
I know you were a little bit nervous because you thought I was going to embarrass you. Well, you're right. Let me ask these questions. No, I've been thinking about doing this because, let's see, it'll be quite a while ago, like probably over a decade. Somebody mentioned to me about interviewing Grandpa Seifert, and I was just so much, immature in my content creation that I was like pretty nervous about it. Well, and he ended up passing away, and I never got to do that. And so I've regretted that ever since. That's like a huge regret of mine. And then doing a lot of like digitization of family pictures and videos and stuff. The things I've appreciated the most are the uncut, people didn't like do it like a Snapchat and then make it the best, ever. It was just like, here's what we're opening presents on Christmas Day, and like it doesn't cut. It's just 10, 20 minutes of just uncut moment of time, and I love it. And then there were a couple, like I think it was Karen Hostetler who interviewed John W.
Oh yeah.
And just had the camera there, and I can't remember the questions because I didn't get to watch it. I was just kind of making sure it was the video was correct, but it was just questions like, what do you think about what's going on today? Which has nothing to do with what's going on present 2025, but to hear him, this is happening and blah, blah, blah. It was like, oh my gosh, I appreciate it so much because it's this little clip of time, and it fills in the gaps of these people's pasts, because like I've always known you as an adult. Like you've never been a kid to me. You've never been a teenager, a college student, any of those. You've always been mom, adult. She knows what's going on.
Sometimes.
And stuff
From
like
the
that.
covered wagon days.
Yeah. When the earth was cooling. But doing the digitization, so I'm taking VHS tapes, I'm scanning old photos. The photos, I've seen those before, but the tapes are the ones that are like, whoa, because it's, they're moving and they're in present day, or they're in the past moment. So like, not only am I seeing you and Jeff and Grandpa and Grandma, I'm seeing like what the house was decorated like, what are people wearing? How are they moving? I think people move differently. I think people talk differently. I got a hold of a bunch of reels that I think Grandma had digitized or whatever. So they're DVDs, but they're actual like 8 millimeter, 16 millimeter, something like that reels. And I'm watching those. I'm like, whoa, that's my mom. Yeah. Well, that's Jeff, and it's super psychedelic, honestly. It is, I agree. It's very trippy, or, I don't know, it changes your worldview. So anyway, having you on the podcast, I know I'm yapping a lot, but having you on the podcast is like similar to Karen interviewing John W., in that moment, to where whatever we talk about today, future generations can look back and be like, you can spend, 3-4 hours with your great grandma right there, and what was she like and what did she think about things? So that's what I'm excited about.
Good.
So, yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
Good. I know you're a little nervous.
I think.
So I guess where we can start, and I usually don't ask questions. I usually just talk, but we talk all the time. So I'm trying to frame it in a way where the listeners that maybe don't know you as well as I do can learn about you. So I think let's just start from the beginning, like where you were born and I had a question of like, what was growing up with Jeff like, things like that. So we can just start there, and we'll start to navigate through some of these questions that I have.
Okay.
Take the reins.
Well, my mom and dad, my dad graduated, your grandpa graduated from Kansas State University, and then they went to Bartlesville, or close to Bartlesville, a year or two later. And Dewey, I think they lived in Dewey, which is where Dad and I got married. But
interesting.
I was born in Jane Phillips Memorial Medical Center, and interestingly, 23 years later, you were born
at the same place,
Jane Phillips Memorial Medical Center.
Strange.
In Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Huh.
So, different doctor though. Your dad delivered you, was
yes.
the first one to hold you. So anyway, I had a great childhood. Where was I born? What was your question? And how was it growing up with Jeff?
Because you're older.
Right, I'm older. Yes, and he had to put up with me mothering him because all I ever wanted to be was a mother, and so I had baby dolls and stuff. But interestingly, too, when Grandma had those videos redone so we could watch them on CDs or DVDs, I was astounded too at watching myself as a child and pushing him around in the cart in a baby stroller and having my arm around him. Poor thing, he was like, and I had my arm around him. Grandma was there obviously taking the pictures, and so yeah, he was great. I know when we got a little older, he was Beth and I was Besley, and so we still, it's like Beth instead of Jeff. His name is Jeff, and Besley, and we just irritated each other, but not mean. Like, we never got into a fight or anything. We used to have a cat named Sam. He was a Siamese, and we got him from our great-great-grandparents, and he would be in the middle of the hall in Tulsa. Our rooms were down the hall from each other, and so the rule was you set him in the middle of the hall, and then you go back by your room, and you'd say, kitty, 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 and whoever...
He got to decide.
He decided whoever he wanted to sleep with.
Custody of Sam.
Yeah,
for the
and
night.
it was about 50-50. But you'd get up the next day at the breakfast table and be like, Sam slept with me last night.
That's great.
So, but no, Jeff's great. He's mild-mannered. He's not mean or anything, and
Did you go, like, I know Jeff's big into sports when he was younger and is now, it's his whole career. Like, did you attend a lot of his games and stuff, or?
Not really. In fact, that's one thing as I look back, I feel kind of bad about because, we did a little bit in Tulsa when we grew up in Tulsa. So we were city kids, and we would go to I played soccer. He played soccer a little bit, but he played baseball and basketball, not football, but, we'd go to his games when he was little, but when he was older, see, in high school, we moved to McPherson from Tulsa, really Mound Ridge, but it was right on the border of McPherson, and I went to McPherson High School, and he was in middle school. I was a junior, and he was probably 8th, 7th grade maybe. So then when I was a senior, he was still in middle school, and we never got to be in high school together.
Much older are you?
So I'm almost 2 years. He might have been a freshman maybe, but
Is it like me and Casey? Because like Casey, I was senior,
I think,
and he was a freshman, so I got to play 1 year of football with him.
Right.
And then then I graduated.
Maybe it was closer because he was 67. And I was 66, but I was at the beginning of 66. Yeah. He was at the end of 67. So it was almost 2 years. He had to have been in high school then. But we didn't, I don't remember, I remember when I went to college at Bethel College in North Newton, he was in high school, on the A team. Yeah. They had a really good team. But I didn't go back. I kind of had my own... Yeah. I was in the dorms, and I was close enough I could have gone back, and I wish I would have done that more. Yeah. That was kind of something I wish I would have paid more attention to him. I was kind of in my own little world, and this new college stuff, and trying to figure that out. And so I came home, but I used to bring people home all the time. It's like, Mom, can we have people for Thanksgiving? Sure. So I'd bring all, there were people that came from Florida and far away. So at Thanksgiving, they didn't know where to go. So I'm like, come on. So
was that in Tulsa, or was that in?
That was in North Newton,
farmhouse?
Kansas. Yeah, the farmhouse.
Okay.
In Mound Ridge.
Okay, yeah.
So, yep. That's.
Yeah. I remember, I guess it's Jeff's room, downstairs at the farmhouse, the first one, in the hallway, you just go directly in there. And I remember when I was quite a bit younger, walking in, and I would always see these pictures of basketball players. When I was young, I was like, professional basketball players. And then one day, I think probably grandma, or maybe I'd noticed it, like, that looks a lot like Jeff. And I realized that's Jeff. And talk about, looking at photos and videos of the past. It was like, who is this guy? So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then it's interesting to see you both on the video that, we're watching or whatever. But, and yeah, I guess you did answer a question, because one of my questions here is why K-State? Was that because Grandpa went there? Or
no.
He did, right? You said that?
Yeah, yes, okay. He graduated from K-State in the engineering department. I went to Bethel for 2 years and got an associate degree. I was only going to go for 2 years. And then at the very end, they're like, well, you can get a degree from here, just associate. I'm like, okay. So I got that degree. And then I had a teacher I took a nutrition class, because those were all prereqs, basically at Bethel.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I loved nutrition, and I thought, I want to be a mother, and that would be good, like to keep myself healthy and keep my family healthy. So, and it was interesting. I loved it. I thought nutrition was great. And I remember my teacher, and I remember her name and everything, but I remember telling her, I'm like, I know what I want to do. I'm going to be a dietitian. And she was working on something, did not look up or say anything, but she said, that's really hard. And I was like, you don't think I can do this, do you?
You said that?
No, but I thought it. Yeah. I was not happy. I was like, do you think I'm a wimp or what? But I will tell you that I never forgot that. And there were a few times at K-State I was like, oh gosh, I'm just done really with this. And I'm like, no way. I am not quitting. No way. But I wanted to go to OU. We grew up in Tulsa. We were huge Sooner fans. Huge. And I always was like, I'm going to Oklahoma. But I went to a campus visit. And like, it's true when they say, like, you just feel it in your gut, like, this is the place for me or this isn't. And it just wasn't. I was like, this is not it. And then when I went to K-State. You
went to Norman? And you felt that way about Norman?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep, I checked that place out, and I thought I wanted to go there. And when I got there, I'm like,
wow,
this is not for me. And I was actually dating a guy at that point, and he wanted to go to Illinois State, and they had a program. So Mom and Dad, or Grandma and Grandpa, and I drove up there.
Wow.
And looked around, and that one was another one. It was like, And then K-State had a program, so we went to K-State, and I'm like, this fits. Nice. So I went there for 2.5 years, and it was great. I loved it. And so then, I don't know if you maybe you know that story, but the last semester of your senior year, you went and did clinicals in Wichita. And my class was too big. We couldn't all go at once, and the class before us was smaller. So they picked 3 people out of a hat. I mean, they just drew 3 names and said, you're going to have to go to Wichita first, that first semester, and then come back and do your restaurant management. It was dietetics, restaurant management.
Restaurant management?
Uh-huh.
Interesting.
And so that restaurant management semester was one of your senior year semesters. And my name was drawn. So I went so did Annie, my friend Annie. We went to Wichita and lived with her dad.
For a semester?
Mm-hmm. And that's where I met your dad.
Yeah.
And had I not been drawn out of a hat to go, not only that, when we got to Wichita, there were 3 hospitals. There was the VA and Wesley Medical Center, and there was one other one. It might have been I'm not sure what the other one was. But out of those 3 hospitals, they split us up. And I went to Wesley Medical Center, where your dad was. And so I met him there. So it's kind of weird how all that came together. Did you know that?
I've heard a little bit of the story. I remember hearing about something where the professor or the doctor asked what's wrong or whatever, and then Dad was the only one to be able to answer the question. the medicines don't mix or something.
He was like, he's so smart. He's so smart. Like when we moved back to, let's see, where was that? Was it Bartlesville? Maybe when you were born. There was the attendings there. He was still a resident.
Mm-hmm.
Would he have been a resident there? I think it was Bartlesville. Anyway, the attendings there would not let the other residents work alone, but Dad, he's like, they had to go look up stuff when Dad didn't. Like somebody would come in and Dad would just say, this is what it is. This is what I think it is. And and the attending would have to go look it up and say, yeah, you're right. You know,
that doesn't surprise me.
He's like smart.
He's wicked smart.
Yes, he is smart. Like
one of my favorite stories. One of my favorite stories of Dad is when he was a kid in children's Sunday school. They had a memory verse memorization of memory verse competition. And he's like, I want every single one. And it was like a whole year, it was like 52 weeks or whatever. And he's like, I want every single one. It's like, oh, that's so funny. But yeah.
You know what is funny too, though? Like, he's so smart. He's so stinking smart, like unreal about all sorts of things. He's super smart, but and deep smart too.
Yeah, tell me about
But we had in school, and I know you guys didn't have them. I don't think so. But they're not weekly readers. They were SRA.
Oh, yeah.
SRAs. And you'd pick one, and then you'd open it up, and there'd be this story, and then there'd be questions at the bottom. And he's like, I hated those things. I used to get them wrong all the time. I'm like, you got those wrong? Here you are, like, so smart in all these other areas, and SRA whipped you.
Well,
so
that made me feel good. Like on the ACT and SAT, it's like, wow, your math sucks. You're really good at writing, though. It's like, good. Thank God I have some sort of
we all have
skill.
Our blessed in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, Dad is very deep, and not to talk too much about him. I do love him to death, but
yeah.
I remember one of my favorite examples of like his depth, and it's like just one sentence that he says, and it's like, you know, gravity starts to get like less on you. You're like, oh my God. We were at Easter at your house. This is a couple of years back. I think I was married. I think Kelsey and I were married. And I think it had something to do with the resurrection and, you know, how can he come back and all this kind of stuff. And just one sentence. He's like, you know, if somehow all of your atoms that make up you were assembled exactly how they are right now on some timeline, then you could be resurrected. The chickens seem to be fed. You know? I was like, what? I mean, I just kind of like passively heard it. Like he's talking to me, but what did you say? And I'm driving home. Like I wrote it down, of course. And then I've thought about it till this day. Like, I think he's right. You know? But yeah.
I'd be like, English, please.
It just made total sense. It's something like Adam would say, you know, like, oh yeah, you're right. You know, theoretically, yeah, that would, you know, if you could, if you die, even if you die and you're cremated or your body is destroyed, you know, somehow scattered amongst the universe, it's like if those atoms could be repositioned exactly how they are now, wouldn't that be like, I don't know, reel it in. Talk more about like meeting Dad, because that was one of my questions of like, how did you and Dad meet? Like, so you kind of outlined the process of getting there, but like, do you remember the first time you saw him or like the first time you noticed him? Or
I was in a group of residents at Wesley Medical Center, and they had one attending, and they would go to each patient's room, and the attending would say, here's Mrs. Smith, and she's 49, whatever, and this is her problem. What shall we do? Or what, you know, she's on this medicine. What shall we watch out for? And so they would answer the questions, and I basically just tagged along. So there is a story in my book about this. So
we can talk about your
reveal
book.
That. But anyway, he had the bluest eyes. He used to wear blue contacts, and his eye, he was just So handsome.
Not blue contacts.
Blue. Like you used to be able to wear contacts that.
With color?
It would make your eyes color.
Oh.
And
you can still do that.
Probably so.
Amber did that for a while. It threw me off.
And he had the bluest eyes. And I remember, like, I don't know. We just, I was comfortable with him. And he was stinking smart. And I thought, you know, to be totally honest, and people might say, oh, I don't like her anymore or whatever. I think less of her. But I wanted to be a mom, and so I went to college. I mean, I liked the nutrition part, but I was looking for a man. I was like, I wanted a husband, and like, but I
don't think that's a bad thing.
Well,
I feel like it's a noble goal.
Are, you know, you need this career. I didn't care about any career. I didn't care at all.
Look how happy they are. Anymore.
Yeah, and everybody does their thing. So, but the best part of my life was being a mom and staying home and getting to be with you kids. And I mean, like you didn't go anywhere without us. Very rarely. If I had an appointment or something, once in a while you'd stay with Missy Wilson or Joanne or.
Those are the two I remember the most.
Yeah, most of the time it'd be one of those two. Otherwise, you went with us. Like if we were going somewhere, you were strapped in and you went with us. And I loved that. I mean, you guys were my life for so long. So anyway, meeting Dad, we were in that group and we just started talking and we used to go to Mazzio's Pizza. There was a Mazzio's, whatever, pizza place, and it had a buffet, a salad bar, and so he loved salads. He used to eat salads.
Still does.
Yeah,
it's really strange.
all the time. And so we would go after work, and we loved to play tennis. We used to play tennis a lot.
I remember that.
After work or whatever, and we'd go to Mazzio's, eat the salad bar, and then go our separate ways or whatever. So, and then he was going to back to Tulsa for another like few months or something. So I interviewed when I graduated for a nephrology.
What's that?
Your kidneys, a dialysis place.
Oh, okay. And
actually got the job. They offered it to me. And then I realized that he would be back like that was going to be a short term.
You were going to be stuck.
Yeah. So I was like, never mind. So I got on at Jane Phillips.
Oh, okay.
And was a dietitian there for a while.
Oh, wow.
So
I didn't know that.
Yep. Until you were born.
Oh, really? And you never went back?
Nope. I never went back.
Well, I've heard the story that you worked the whole time you were pregnant with me, like up till the day. Or close to.
Yep, the day before. And then you were born at
Let that be a lesson.
7:14 in the morning. So that morning.
Oh, really?
When
I told my astrology AI that I was born at 9:48 p.m. or something like that.
No.
Crap!
You were born in the morning.
Oh, no, gave me the wrong output.
I remember I was like hurting, but I'm like, you got to shave my legs. Get in here. And I was so fat, I couldn't lean over to shave my legs very well. So, yeah, he called Grandma, I guess, and they started on the way. And then we went over to the hospital, and it wasn't very long, and you were born. And I remember you were in the nursery, like they take you in there and clean you up. You were in the nursery, and you had oxygen for a while. And Terry and Karen came, and I don't know if Cindy came, maybe. I don't know. But I just remember Terry. And Terry said something like, oh, that poor kid's going to get shots all the time because his dad's a doctor and his mom's a dietitian. He's never, he's going to never get any cookies or whatever. And I remember Dad said he was standing there and he said, well, the only reason why he'd never get any cookies is because she ate them all. Your mom ate them all. So.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was sweet.
You are the... dessert baking
I like
wizard.
I like
sorceress. Who was I telling? I was telling somebody. Oh, I was telling Sandra Nick and Sandra's mom, Sandra's mom, which is also named Sandra, because we were over there the other day, and there was like a bunch of KFC chicken, and I was I'm like, no, I'm good. I've already had some, it's good. And she's like, would you want tacos? And I was like, man, that does sound pretty good, but not like, no. I should have said no, but I was like, wow, or something. All of a sudden, she's like, hey, get in here. I'm like, what? She's like, your taco's ready. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, thank you. But anyway, she's like, I just can't. She said something like, I just can't not cook for people. Like, I just want everyone to be fed, and like, that's what I'm going to do. And so when you said you wanted tacos, I was on it. And they were really good tacos. But I said, and my mom's the same way. She said, we'll just be around talking, and she might not even be close to the kitchen, but suddenly these cinnamon rolls come out of nowhere. It's like, where did those come from? And you're really good at that. So it made me think of you.
I think that helps me because I feel like I'm not using that dietetic degree very well,
So much has changed, as you know.
Right.
We debate quite a bit.
So, but to feed people, like that's kind of my goal too now. Like I don't want anyone to leave my house hungry. And that those cinnamon rolls are from Grandma. She's the one that started that whole thing because Grandpa wanted them in the 70s or something. 75,
Thank you, Grandpa.
80s.
Thank you.
And so he's like, if you make me cinnamon rolls every Friday or every Saturday, whatever, they kind of had this little thing, then he would buy her a fur coat.
Dang.
And
Did
she's
he?
like, yeah. And so she went to a class and learned how to make cinnamon rolls.
Wow.
And she got her fur coat.
Wow.
And
that's a great deal. That's a win-win.
Well, now it would be like terrible, because
fur coat.
Yeah, like
depends on
rabbit fur or
depends
something.
on how you get it.
Well, you don't want to kill an animal to get.
Well, I think if you kill the animal, I was going to do a coyote coat, I guess is what you want to call it, but I wasn't gonna. I was gonna do it myself, like kill them, scalp them, and tan them and everything. But it takes a lot of time.
Then you should eat like the Indians. You should eat them and use all the parts so you're not wasting anything. You don't want to kill an animal just for its skin, but
no.
Anyway, it's
arguably Anyway, arguably.
So that came down the pike. That's
very cool.
I learned from Grandma, and then just all through the years.
Well, I mean, your baking skills are very obviously like master level because I bought that. Got a cramp. I got that Josh Wiseman book.
Oh yeah.
And you made the cinnamon rolls in there, which was interesting.
It was different.
It was different.
Yeah.
And well, not like bad, but
no.
I noticed it as soon as I was like, these are not.
Oh really?
Mom's
you
rolls.
Could taste
oh
it.
yeah. They had a little bit more of like a sourdoughy taste.
Yes.
Sour taste, like a very subtle, but it was there, and it was really good, and they were stretchier than usual, and there was some differences. I've had your cinnamon rolls so often I could literally be blindfolded and POW in Iraq, and I'd be like, that one. But that's a cool story. I did not know that about the lore of the cinnamon rolls.
Your grandpa, he always has.
Well, I know he's always liked them.
Cinnamon rolls.
Cinnabons or Cinnabons or whatever.
Cinnabons.
And I thought for the longest time you could only get them at airports, and he did a lot of traveling, so maybe that's where. But I didn't know it went back. I didn't know it went that deep.
Mm-hmm.
And then to make a comment on the feeding everyone or whatever, it's like, your goal or your calling was to be a mom, or that's what you wanted or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's what drove you. But it's almost like it's more than being a mom to like Casey and I. It's almost like your energy level, your overall calling is to mother, the world or other people, or it's like wherever you are, maybe that's the energy that you bring. Because a lot of people don't have that motherly influence on their life. I can think of a few, that they're great people and they turned out just fine, but they didn't have a Leslie Seifert, so that's more of like a lifetime calling, on the world.
I remember when I was 50 and you typed up a nice Facebook post for my 50th birthday. And I remember like Jacob Fry put happy birthday, Mama Seifert, or I remember Jacob, and there was another one. There was at least two.
Probably Dylan, Josh.
Yeah, I don't know who else it was. I'd have to look back, but that just touched my heart so much because I was like, oh my goodness, some of these other kids, and I loved having your friends over and putting a spread out. That was one of my favorite things. Like the ball game would be on or whatever, and all these people would come over, and I don't know how many times I went to bed and I'd get up in the morning and there'd be people all over. I'd be stepping over people, and we'd make waffles in the morning. Oh, yeah. I'd have to make 2 big batches because, you were in high school. All you guys were in high school eating like, a
None
horse's
of our friends
share.
were. Yeah. They were all very large.
So, playing football, and
I know.
You guys burned
that's what I mean.
a bunch of calories and energy, but I just loved having your friends over and having people over. Even like now,
who was your favorite?
Thanksgiving was is one of my favorites, and just having a big spread. And I always now want to put extra, like, let's invite other people, and maybe some people don't have family and they're just sitting at home and like, well, come eat. So I always try to get a big old turkey. And
do you think that comes from childhood, like Helen and
Sure.
Orland? Because that's the Seiferts were, their holidays were large, but not like the Garings.
Right.
There was just quite a bit more people and
Right.
families and stuff, and there was a lot of different ages and whatnot. Do you think that's part of, like, you grew up in that,
Yeah.
those big family gatherings? I feel like Kelsey's similar in that way.
And my mom and dad, your grandma and grandpa, they were always like, sure, bring your friends.
Well, yeah.
It wasn't awkward at all. It was
Yeah.
like they embraced anybody that came in their home. Like,
They
come
had
on
in the farmhouse, they did a lot of like missionary
Yeah.
housing or whatever, like
And
for
they
the
did,
church.
yeah, and they did in Tulsa too.
Okay.
They had groups in their home, and it was just always, that was part of it. And
Yeah.
and you come, and you're welcome, and how can we help you, and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Yeah, I love that, and I want to do more of that. I want to do more.
That is I don't want to hijack this conversation into AI, but I'm very interested in it. And one of the possible results of like super advanced AI is infinite abundance for humanity, meaning like whatever you want, whenever you want, however much of it you want, you get it, which is really strange. I get it. That's like the most optimistic, worldview or whatever. But I think it's probably going to be a little bit of utopian and dystopian. Barring that conversation, let's just go to the infinite resource idea. And I was listening to a conversation about these 2 people were discussing, I think it was Elon actually. Elon and somebody else were like the infinite resource. And someone made a great point. He goes, one thing that it might increase, they were talking about if you don't have a job, like what's your meaning? Like so many people's meaning comes from their job or their work or like what they do for other people or what they do for a living. That's the question. What do you do at a cocktail party? What do you do? Oh, I'm a firefighter,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm a whatever. And you remove that because Optimus and everybody else is doing those jobs for you. Then what's your purpose and meaning? And somebody made a point that that would be a great opportunity, and he argued for it, that would be a great opportunity to increase the amount of time that you were with people, and that communities would be really strong, or they could have the opportunity to become really strong, and you could be really involved. Because if you're not having to go to an 8-hour job every day, like we could do this, we could talk, and Mom, tell me about when you were a kid. How many times have we done that? Here and there, but we're always busy, and maybe there's something on the back of your mind where you're like, I got to get to that. But if it's all taken care of, then anyway, I thought it was interesting that he argued for that. He said, also, there's the possibility that you talk to AIs all day because they will be so human-like. That was a side note, but I liked the community aspect. I thought, yeah, I did my little mental experiment. I was like, if I were to remove all the stresses of my life, making money, trying to do something for a legacy, all the jobs that I do that I don't want to do, if I just took it all away and I had everything I needed, physically, resource wise, yeah, I probably would, hang out with people more. I wouldn't be so, I think a lot of times I don't hang out with people or groups because I feel pressed for time. I'm like, I gotta do this stuff because I'm unfulfilled. So I gotta go do it. But I feel like I would, be more involved in communities like a church or a sports group or whatever, and not feel so stressed. And anyway, enough of that.
You're always welcome at church. You know that.
Yes, I do. Let's see. How are you liking these questions so far?
So far.
We're about to get into some good ones. No, I'm just kidding. They're all pretty good. Let me ask you. Well,
I was always a good girl. So, I mean, like I'm a rule follower to this day. So as a kid, like when you were saying your growing up years, people pleaser to a T, to a fault. So.
Go on.
Just you were talking about childhood. And Did I tell you my childhood?
Yeah, that's very Garing-like. I always think about when Olivia, I think, was graduating. They said, don't cheer or whatever when they announced your name.
Oh, yeah.
And all these other people were like, yeah. And then I think it was Grandpa or Grandma were like, well, if we would have known that, we would have cheered. Which, hey, it's a hilarious story. But honestly, people like that are the backbone of our society. Like if we have rules, to put in place, and I would say I'm a rule breaker. So it's like, I'm kind of the one causing chaos on society that removes stability and functionality. I'm the one that, I break a lot of rules more than I probably should. But it's like people like the Garyans are like, you guys keep this whole thing working so that I can break the rule, so I value that very much. I'm not downing them. Here's a good one. I asked AI for some questions. Where'd it go? What's a family tradition you've held on to and what makes it worth keeping?
The one that comes to mind, I didn't even do this year, but Grandma started, well, that's not even true. Back up. Grandma's grandma, Helen Gehring, started buying books for the kids, for all of us. Everybody could pick out a book, and then you would bring it at Christmas, and she would sign all the books.
Oh, cool.
Like to Colton from Grandma and Grandpa Gehring, Christmas 1992, whatever. And so that built people's libraries with books that were meaningful to them, or I'm sure there was a few that's like, that's a dud. Don't, I thought it was going to be good. But like even when you were little, we used to buy books for you, and then Grandma would sign them, and Grandpa, or for Grandma and Grandpa. And then Grandma, my mom, your grandma, kept that up, and it was a New Year's book. And so every year she would buy us a New Year's book. And a lot of the time it would be a devotional of some sort, like something to encourage you in the next year. And I thought, that's great. And so I've done that a few years for you kids. And this year I think I just bought you journals and just gave it to you at Christmas. But I guess I need to do that.
Yeah, I like that. Especially if it was, the signing is good, but if you put a little blurb in there, about whatever was going on, and
I thought you would like this. I mean, you got me a book one year for Christmas and wrote in it like, it was the 12 Jordan Peterson. The 12 rules of, I
thought it was, I guess I got you that one. What about the one, the imperfection?
Yeah, Brene Brown.
Brene Brown
you
books.
got that one.
Brene Brown.
Yeah. And then when you put a little, like you said, a little thing in the front saying, I was thinking of you about this, and I thought this would help, whatever. Then it's like more of a keepsake. It's like, ooh, hard to give that one away, or I'll have to rip out the front page.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, when I give a book, it's not like I'm hopefully you're gonna want it.
Right.
I don't think it's gonna be like a
Right.
a murder mystery or something.
No.
Maybe it will be.
Yeah, that one.
I've given those books. I've given Jordan Peterson 12 Rules to Life to a few people that I thought needed it, or that I thought could benefit their life. Not that they needed it, that it would help them.
Mm-hmm.
But the one book that I've given out more than anybody is the Lion Tracker's Guide to Life by Boyd Vardy.
To men, that's a men's one, isn't it?
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. Maybe it has a little bit of a masculine narrative because they're tracking a lion, but he just talks about using the metaphor of tracking animals for life, and he kind of goes back and forth. So the overarching narrative is they're tracking this lion, him and his two friends from South Africa, and they find prints and they lose the track and they run into a rhinoceros and all kinds of stuff. And at the same time, he talks about his story, and he talks about this one moment. It's pretty powerful, where he's a guide for the safari. His family owns this. It butts up to Kruger. I can't remember. Londolozi Game Preserve is his area that he works at or whatever. And he's a safari guide, so he'd wake up and kind of like what I guided hunts, but rather more photography or whatever. Get in the car, and there was this one girl who is significant, this one woman who is significant, who turned out to be like a significant person.
Player in the story.
Of like, almost like a Brene Brown type character. You know, she wasn't just like a normal random human. This is like, okay, turns out to be this person. Can't remember her name, but one day she just said something like, "I'm ready to listen when you're ready to talk," and he just was like, "What?" And then just started weeping and just broke him down. And he's like, "What?" He didn't need to understand. Like, he didn't even know he was holding on to all this, whatever it was.
Wow.
And that really inspired him to be like, I want to do that for people.
Other people.
Yeah. So wrote the book, and he's really, I like his prose and I like his perspective on life. He's real poetic in the way he talks about everything. He's like, I like when people are like, you know, with their words and stuff. So
I may have to borrow it.
Yeah, I'll have to buy it for you. I bought it for Terry. I bought it for Caleb, Colin, Casey. I bought it for maybe Josh, Nick Bonner. I would say the only person that's probably read it is Caleb. I think that's the only person that like actually got back to me. Maybe Colin. I can't remember. I gave it to him when we went to see Jordan Peterson a long time ago when we saw his lecture. But yeah. Anyway, you don't have to read a book I give you. It's fine.
Well, usually you have pretty good taste in books, and I mean, I get out something when you.
That's good. I'm thinking about people all the time. So like when maybe it's a man thing, maybe it's a Colton thing. I'm not really sure. But like when I hear people talk, like I'm just analyzing everything you're saying. And one time Casey and I were talking, he said, you really focus on the words that people use. I think that's something that Adam taught me. It's like, why did you use that word in that order with that inflection? Like I'm listening to exactly, because, you know, learning about hacking and social engineering and all that kind of stuff, body language, like people tell you everything. Like they just can't, there's no choice. They'll just tell you. Me too, you know. But most of the time people aren't paying attention enough to pick up on what they're saying. And the more I've learned to pay attention to people, the more I'm like, what? It's right there. It's just right there. It's always right there. Look at how they're standing. Look at, why did you say that? Like you could have said the infinite universe. You could have picked anything to say in any order. And you said this. That's so revealing. So now I know, now I'm like, ooh, tread lightly. This is a very hurt person.
Yeah.
They're looking for something, they're looking for something. And if I reveal it to them too quickly or at all, they might get mad or they might get, offensive or defensive or whatever. Anyway. So yeah, when for Joanne, for instance, the second he told me, like, I just like my subconscious, my AI in my head was just like, turkey tail mushrooms. I've heard people come back from cancerous, diagnoses. Last I heard was turkey tail. So then it comes up and I'm like, you should look at this, So it's just kind of how I'm built, I guess. But back to you.
I tear up every time I think of it.
Yeah. I don't know as much as you do, but I've definitely prayed for her a lot. One thing, do I get into this? No, we can. It's all right. So we've led up to when you and Dad met and you started, dating, and then you got married and had me. What was it like when you first became a mom? Because you said before that was all you wanted. You were at college to find a man to be a mom. Mission accomplished. You picked a good one. What was it like to accomplish that for the first time?
I remember epidurals when they give you a shot and they deaden. That they were starting that in December. You were born in November.
Oh,
so
what do you mean they were like they didn't do that before? I was like a new thing.
Well, I don't know what the deal was, but
hospital that you were
in?
Oh, okay.
They hadn't had it okayed. I don't know. I have to ask Dad about that, but they didn't. So all I had was I don't remember the drug name, but it was just kind of to deaden the pain a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember laying there, and it was kind of made you sleep too. So like I'd sleep between contractions, and then you were born, and I remember them showing you to me, and I probably held you for just a minute, and then they had to take you and give you oxygen, and you were under a kind of a tent thing for a while, and Dad wheeled me in there to see you in the little kind of incubator thing, and he told me later, he's like, I didn't think you liked him. But I was like drugged on that medicine.
Yeah.
And so I was like so sleepy, and then I went later, of course, I'm like, there's another thing in my book about you, because like I'll probably start bawling, because you were like everything I'd ever wanted. I mean, like, here was this child, and I remember thinking, he's dependent on me, like you can't eat or change yourself or be warm or anything without me. And I mean, I did everything with you. I, like, in the middle of the night, I would get up with you and feed you. And during the day, I would sit and rock you for hours and hours. And like, there was like, I just couldn't even imagine. It was hard to put you down. We just did everything together.
Are you, in your book, are you insinuating the time where you had to give me back to the Lord?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you should tell that. That's a good story.
Well, yeah, it's in my book, so you have to get the book.
No,
it was.
They will.
No, like I said, you were everything. Like, and we, I would put you in the stroller and we'd go for a walk, and I kept some other kids for a while to make a little extra money, but
my brothers and sisters.
No, and but I just felt like God. One day when I was holding you, I just felt like God said, I have to be first place in your life. And I'm like, no, I am not giving up this child. This is all I've ever dreamed of. This is the best thing ever. I'm like, I've waited for this experience. And so I just brushed it off. I was like, eh. And then about a week later, here comes this little voice, and I didn't hear anything audibly. It was just in my heart. It was just like, I need to be first place in your life. And this time it was not so much like talk to the hand. It was, don't make me give up this child. And then a third time, it was, I will be first place or no place. I either am first place or not at all. I'm Lord of all or not Lord at all. And I knew, at that time, I knew in my heart, I knew this, it was worship of you as this baby, And so I knelt down on the floor and I just laid you in front of me. And I just said, I want you, God, more than anything, more than this child. more than anything else, I want you to be first place. And I saw then that he has given me you for a short time. I mean, you've grown up and you're gone, and I had an opportunity, a gift. You were my gift, but you were not to be worshipped. And so I laid you there, and I have never, I felt a peace and a freedom like no other. And that's what we were talking before about when you put for my 50th birthday, you had put that on Facebook. And then I realized, I'm like, when I gave you up, when I gave up that worship and put my worship back where it's supposed to be, that God, it's like he returned it. He returned it because not only had he given me you and Casey, he gave me all these other kids to mother too. And now when I work at school, I have all these other kids that need hugs and need a mother's love. And so, it says in the Bible to, seek me first, and then all these things will be added to you. And I believe that was a gift for being obedient. I've not been obedient tons of times, but at that point I was. And so I gave you up, and even then I adored you. You were just wonderful. And I remember when I was pregnant with Casey, you were in your crib. I put you down to go to sleep, and this was in our house now. And I remember looking at you, and I'm like, how could I ever love anyone more? How could I ever, here's this baby. How am I going to love this baby as much as I love?
You're thinking of Casey?
Yeah. Oh. This child who, we did everything. In the morning we'd get up, and what are we doing today? You would cook with me, and we'd go outside, and you'd ride your tricycle, or you'd do stuff outside, or, we did everything together. And then when Casey was born, I was like, I learned that a mother's love multiplies. It doesn't divide. You didn't get half and half. It, you both. I was like, oh, this is how it works. I love you both, and Casey I love him just as much. And so.
I think that's a common belief of humans, to think that things are finite, because a lot of our things are finite, resources, physical resources, and things like that. But the spiritual, I think, is infinite, particularly love. It's like, man, how could I love everybody? I think about that with Kelsey and Casey. They're probably my two favorite people in the whole world. It's like, who are you going to go to Disneyland with? One of them. Who are you going to go to the beach with? One of them. It's every time. And I was like, how could I ever care about the whole world like this? But hearing that story, it's like, I think you do have infinite love to give. And maybe that's a good example between children, where it's like, it's not, I only have 100% and now 50-50. There is no end to where this energy, where it comes from and where it goes. There's no end. And actually, particularly with love, I think it's almost like a feedback loop. Like the more you give, the more you get energy wise. It's like a nuclear reactor or something. I don't know.
Yes, I totally agree that you have to give love to get that, to when you hold it back and when you hold it in, you're losing. But when you give it away, it multiplies.
Remember my quote from 2022? you have. This is exactly what we're talking about, and I'll tell you this. I can tell you the story if you care to hear. But in 2021, you see treasure, yet you do not take it. You have treasure, yet you do not give it. That came from.
Wow.
I was at a grocery store, and I saw someone that I knew, and they were pretty far away, and I just had this reaction of I don't want to talk to him. I'm just here to get whatever I'm here to get. I'm ready to go home, and this was days later. I think Kelsey had a girls' night or something, so I went to the track, and I just walked, and I don't even think I had my headphones. I was just walking and just thinking, which is I love thinking. Every year, what are you gonna do for New Year's? I'm like, I want to sit and think. I like to put on music. I like to put on a 5-hour mix, so I don't have to change it, and I just sit there, and I just let it come in waves, you know, sometimes. And what I love about that is I can go as deep as I want on one thought. I can just deep. And once I get to the bottom, or I get tired of thinking it, or I finish it, it's like, whoop, back up here. And now I think about the Ravens or something. And then then I do, anyway. So that's what I was doing. And I heard that voice, like you said, not an audible voice, but an internal, like, you have treasure. I had treasure. Maybe he needed to hear something that day. I could have been like, hey, how's it going? And maybe he had a hard day, and I could have been that positive. Maybe nobody asked him how his day was, and I could have been that. I didn't do it, unfortunately. Some of the best lessons come from that.
Yes. From
not doing it, but I don't recommend not doing it. Right. I recommend doing it.
Right.
But if you did mess up, just find the treasure in the fault and move on. But yeah, that's exactly what that was. I have treasure and I didn't give it, and I seek treasure and I didn't accept it. So giving and receiving.
Or receiving, because I like to get
up
in the morning.
Well, yeah, you could expand it for sure. Yeah.
First thing in the morning and give God the first part of my day. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many times, like, a verse will come up just like, oh, I asked you about that last week or last month or last year, and here now there's the answer, you know, or whatever I read that day, somebody will come up and need that.
Yeah.
And so I can pass that along to that person.
Synchronicities.
And if I hadn't gotten up and been filled with the Spirit, been filled with the Lord, what would I have said? And I've done that sometimes when I haven't gotten up, and I'm not poo-pooing anybody for not getting up. I mean, whatever your schedule is. But sometimes when I haven't and somebody comes up, I've just been like, there's no words. I don't even know what to tell you. I'm sorry that this is happening to you or whatever. But, like, literally nothing. I'm standing there or looking at the person like, I don't even know what to say. When usually before I'll have, this nugget of treasure, and a lot of times they'll say, that's exactly what I needed today. And I'm like, thank you.
Yeah. Oh crap, I had a good thing about that. I can't remember, but about the peyote houses the peyote circles that I've done. One thing that the roadman, can't think of his name right now. Good dude. He's been the roadman, the preacher, the leader, for the 4 or 5 times that I've sat, all night. And every time midnight comes around, he'll say it's a new day. This is a good time to pray at midnight, because it's literally the start of the day. So you're starting your day off with prayer. I know you're waking up early, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning to do your prayer, which I'm not saying that's wrong, but I always liked when he said that, like, it's a good time. And then we start at 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the evening, and we go and we take the peyote and we do the songs and we do the smoke baths, and you do the rituals or whatever, the process. And then it leads up to, like, you're building energy, purity, especially if you did the sweat lodge the day before, and stuff like that. You're building to that midnight hour. And then that's kind of when the prayers really start. That's where you really, you go
Powerful.
through they have a list, and they, so-and-so is dealing with health issues, and they'll start to pray, and everybody will pray, and they'll burn cedar wood and all kinds of stuff.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I always like that. Midnight, it's good time to pray. It's like, oh yeah, that's good.
I think people don't understand too, which I'm like, pick up your Bibles, because there is so much wealth and knowledge, and like some of these things, like the first fruits, go to God, like the first part of your day, or the first, like right there, midnight. This is the first. I was just studying Joshua and the Battle of Jericho. And they went into Jericho, and God, made the walls fall. And he said, rush in, but none of the spoils, it's all, I never understood that before, but it was God, it was first fruits. Like all of that was like an offering to God. Then they went to AI. It's interesting that the next town they go to is AI.
What do you mean?
It's that's the name of the town, AI.
Like literally the letter A and I. Oh.
And I think it's usually capital A, little I, but and then God said, okay, now you can take you find gold or silver or their cows and whatever, you can take that. That's yours. The first fruits go to God, and that's one reason why I get up. It said Jesus went off by himself and prayed in the morning, got up early, left the house, went outside. And then I saw the other day, though, before he walked on the water to the boat when the toss in the seas, he went up in the evening on the mountainside by himself and prayed. So I'd always kind of focused on the morning, but in the evening. But also with the manna, they had to get up. They couldn't, it just didn't float into their house. They had to get up and go out and gather it. And a lot of times I equate that to gathering what you need for the day. So in the morning when you read or whatever you do, pray, and you've gathered what you needed for the rest of the day. So, and you gather however much you need, and the manna, they gathered much or little, but there was enough for everybody. Sometimes I heard Beth Moore, I love her, Bible teacher. She talked about her friend who lost like a 4-year-old to leukemia, and she is like, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. But God was showing her that manna. Oh, I just love this story. Like, he is our manna. John 6:38, I think. The people are asking Jesus, like, well, are you like our father, like our Moses who gave us manna in the desert? And he's like, they
were asking Jesus.
Yeah. And he's like, it wasn't Moses that gave you that. It was my Father in heaven. And yes, he has sent me. I am your manna. I am your bread of life. Like, that's what you get in the morning or whenever to fill yourself up. I mean, it's me. He's like, it's me, dudes. Look, it's me. It's Jesus. That's who is our manna and who. Sorry, I get all excited when I talk about Jesus.
Oh, I love Jesus. I think he is awesome.
Yes. And so, anyway, but there's enough there. Like, if you have to go through difficult times, there is enough manna. There is enough Jesus, and there will be enough until that difficult time is past. So, you can't, you're insulting God if you say, I could never make it through. Yes, you can. Oh. He will get you through that. He will be there for you. Now, some people say, I don't want you, and they don't do well, and they fall into drinking or whatever. They get stuck in a ditch because they don't know, or they don't accept Jesus. They don't realize that's there for them. And my heart goes out to them. But anyway, I thought that was a fabulous lesson. I'm just in awe of the Bible and everything. It's just amazing.
It's almost like it's both true, though. It's like almost true of like, no, I couldn't go through that. And then Jesus comes in like, no, you can't. But with me, you can.
Right.
Right. It's like
alone.
Yeah, you're right. There ain't no way you're going to be able to deal with the loss of a 4-year-old with leukemia. But with me, there's a chance.
Right.
Type thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
I guess we could talk about, because I'm interested in like your spiritual journey. You're a very devout Christian. I was thinking about some of the things that Nick Bonner's told me about you or whatever, but just, how pure and good you are. And a lot of people look up to you, Christian wise. But what was the journey with that? Because everybody has a journey. No one comes out just being, So you were brought up in a Christian household.
Yep.
But just talk a little bit about the journey and how you got to where you are now. You're very involved with the church. You've used your skills, sign language and things like that, particularly with adjacent with the church or with Christianity. So you're very devout in that. And yeah, I'd like to know, the process of the journey of how you got to where you are now spiritually.
Well, like you said, your great-great-grandpa was a minister, a preacher, and both your great-grandparents were like deacons and helpers in the church. And so Grandma Gehring is very interested in study. You get a lot of your, I think, book.
I think about her all the time.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm doing the AI to the binders and
oh yeah,
all that.
yes,
I'm like,
that's your grandma to a T.
Well, we were talking the other day. I stopped at their house and we were talking. She's showing me like all the archive, and I'm like, you need to digitize this and put it. In fact, the other day I said, do you have Peter's Promised Land digital file? Because I can take that digital file, upload it to AI, and there's an AI that will make a podcast over anything that you give it. Like if you give it details. So what I wanted to try was to take Peter's Promised Land and put it into the podcast AI, and then it would make a custom podcast over that book. So they would talk about the people in the book, it'd tell their stories. And I was like, well, maybe that would make a more, not that the book is not readable or anything, but sometimes it's hard to sit down and read. It's like maybe when people are driving to work or grocery store or whatever, working out, it's like you could listen to Peter's Promised Land podcast by AI, which is, have you ever heard the voices?
No.
Oh, it's crazy. It's like crazy good. They have, like all the weird things that humans do. Well, not weird, but organic things that humans do. The AI adds that in. It makes it so much more like, you're not like Peter's Promised Land, it's not like that. It's like very listenable, and like you feel like you're listening to two people talk about.
Oh gosh.
Anyway,
that's great.
Not to hijack AI again, but I did message. I was like, if you can find that, I want to try to see what I can come up with. So she said she would.
Yeah. And you have 3 other grandparents you should interview.
I would love to. Yeah, I want to, again, not to get too far off topic, but I want to, talking to Kelsey, I was like, you know what? Started the podcast based on Rogan. I loved listening to Joe, and that's why we go so long and everything. And that's why we have 2 cameras set up and, everything. But I've kind of got to the point where it's like now my show is starting to break off from Joe's, like what I modeled it after. And part of me is like, no, I want to be like Joe. I want to be like Joe. It's like, well, you're not. And it makes me think of Conan O'Brien. I used to listen to a commencement speech from Stanford or one of those big Ivy Leagues, but he talked about the failure to become our heroes is what makes us into our true characters. So I think about that a lot. But part of it is like, well, I live in Joplin, Missouri. I don't have a ton of people to talk to that are like super high caliber, celebrity, great, think people that have done great things. Not that people in Joplin haven't. I'm just saying I don't have access to the people that Joe does. Famous people. And so one of my thoughts was like, well, use my skills and talents and technology to archive like something like this. Like some of the stuff I've heard today already, we're only an hour and 15 in. I'm like, I've never heard that before. Or it's really cool to hear the unfiltered version from you, like your thoughts on the matter. And it's like, man, I would love that for everybody. And I'd love to hear, Grandma Kathy talk about it. I'd like to hear, Aretha talk about it. I'd like to hear Terry, my uncle, who I know Terry pretty well. I don't know him 3-hour podcast in and, all the stories and stuff. Still to this day, I'll hear like a random father and uncle lore, like they were talking about getting in a fight at a party. I'm like,
I know.
What are you talking about? You guys fought. Like, that doesn't even make sense.
That's what I thought too.
I can never even picture. I mean, I can't actually, but I've never heard that story. Or like Cindy, I remember went over to Cindy's house one time and I was like, I'm just going to pick up a mattress for the B&B. And we sat there for 3 to 5 hours. It was a long time. And the lore that woman gave me was like filling in so many gaps. I mean, it broke me. I sat in the truck and I cried a little bit after we talked because of some of the stuff she told me. And I was like, what was that? I don't even know what that was. I didn't even know that happened. I didn't even it colored more of her past. It just made her much more multifaceted to me. She's not just Aunt Cindy. It's like, whoa, she's, here's the stories with John, her husband that passed away. Here's Jesse, and who I'm good friends with still, talk to him almost every day. And all this detail got added in, like, unbelievable. Like, just totally changed my perspective on it. So anyway, long story, not to hijack, but I would love to interview Jeff and Grandma, and even like, somebody I would like top notch level love to talk to is Steve. I love talking to Steve. I think he's just, oh man. Oh, I love talking to Steve. He's fearless on what he wants to talk about. Like, some people don't want to talk about death, man. He just started there. He's like, I can't remember exactly. It caught me off guard. We were at like a family reunion, and he said something about, I wonder what happens after you die. He didn't say that, but it was like kind of along those lines. I'm like, go on. I would love to talk to you about this. So I would like to kind of do more of these with family, and build up more of an archive of unfiltered, like I said before, unfiltered, raw thoughts and stories and things that I don't know about, or, so anyway, but, yeah, sorry, back to you.
I forgot the original question. What was it?
It's going over your spiritual journey.
Oh yeah. So I grew up in a Christian home. Yeah, we always went to church. I don't remember any time that we did not go to church. A lot of times Wednesday night we went to church. Mm-hmm. When I was 13, there was a lady named Alma Lou Smith, and she was up at the front, beautiful voice, and she was singing Jesus Loves Me. And I was sitting by my mom, and she kind of elbowed me, and I was not like paying attention at all. I was doing 13-year-old, not paying attention. And she said, I think this is for you today.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, let me pay attention here. And I always kind of look back to that day as before it was me in the middle, and it was cheerleading and soccer and horses and, all these things around me. And that day things kind of changed, and it was God in the middle, and it was me and horses. That's not very good grammar. Horses and me, soccer, whatever. But God was in the middle, and God was in all these things. And if God's not in that, then don't do it or whatever. Now, we moved, that was in Tulsa Christian Fellowship. And then we moved to Kansas as a junior, and my cousins were there, second cousins. And thank God they saved me, because I didn't walk into school not knowing anyone.
Oh, yeah.
I knew them, and I knew they had introduced me to people. And at that point, there was a huge youth group at the Mennonite church. And so I knew all those people. And so it was not a traumatic thing at all. But I did, did some stupid stuff, teenage stuff that I look back and I'm like, oh gosh, why did you do that? So I feel like, I've been in the trenches too. And, people, I know one guy that was going to come to church one day. They did come once. And, but he's like, I don't want to go into church. There'll be lightning and it'll like destroy the whole. And I'm like, if the lightning didn't hit when I went in there,
yeah,
then you're good, because I've probably done more than you have, stuff that I shouldn't have done. And so I don't want people to look at me and say, she's had it perfect all her life and she, is perfect, because that's so far from the truth. And I've been in the ditch, and I've been in, muck and mire, and done terrible things I shouldn't have done, said terrible things I shouldn't have said, thought terrible things I shouldn't have thought. And I mean, I'm a sinner big time, but I think that's one thing that draws me to Christ, because he takes that and turns it around and washes you and makes you new again. And so, I've been in the ditch, so I don't want to go back. And so I try so hard to live my life
like
in
a
way.
Dog returning to vomit.
Yeah, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to do the things that I used to do as a dumb teenager, and
But do you give yourself grace? Do you give the teenage self grace?
I have tried. I did that craft study where you go through each one. You know what's helped is the videos like that grandma made where you watch yourself.
It separates. You see the teenage self as a different person.
Yeah.
Easier to,
You watch yourself in these videos and it's like, oh my goodness, that's me. And they're passing me around as a baby and they're, oohing and awing over this little person that's trying to walk, and I'm looking at and I'm like, that's me.
Yeah.
And so that has helped. I also wrote a whole bunch, journal a whole bunch about different times. I guess it was probably in that craft study. And it's like, I forgive you.
Charles
Craft. Like, I forgive you for these dumb decisions and the trouble you got in because of that. I mean, I was never in jail or anything like that. But
well, you won't admit it on the podcast.
But just dumb decisions that kids make. And now probably people wouldn't say it was such a big deal, but it is to me. And it wasn't, I know I hurt people and it breaks my heart worse than, the hardest person it is to forgive is yourself. But I think that's why I cling to Jesus as much as I do, because I look and I'm like, all the things you have done for me, all the things you have forgiven, all the things, and the whole sign language thing where Wes Davis was the preacher, and I know you probably know this story, but he said, ask for whatever you want. Ask for, and not a car or house or something like that, but a gift that you don't have. And I was like, I want to sing. Immediately. I said, I want to sing.
That's the first thing you thought of?
Immediately. I want to get up on stage and sing beautifully. And then all these sign language classes opened, and I got this job, miraculously got this job, sight unseen. You don't hire an interpreter sight unseen, and I had no idea what I was doing. So if
you admit it now.
Luckily, it was with a kid that didn't need an interpreter as much as a para, and so I worked my tail off, and I studied, and I wrote down what the teacher said that I didn't know the sign for, and I went home and I studied, and I went back the next day and I tried, and I'd be like, okay, now how would I sign that, or how would I make that work? I went to workshops, and I worked my tail off. And then one day I was signing a song at church, and that prayer came to me, like, you wanted to sing. And I'm like, oh my goodness. My prayer was sing, S-I-N-G, and God took the last two letters and switched them and taught me how to sign, S-I-G-N. And now when I sing with my hands. And not only, that's what just makes God so amazing, is not only did he teach me that and give me that gift of sign language, he gave me a whole career. Like, he gave me a whole career. I had subbed for 8 years before that. And then I had 5 years to just kind of learn more. And then we went to, they called and they needed more interpreters in the state of Kansas. So they asked Steph and me if we wanted to join this program. And so we were like, I don't know. So we filled out the application, sent it in. I'm like, okay, Lord, if you want me in, get me in. If not, that's fine. We were both accepted. They paid for tuition. They paid for books. They sent us a camera to video ourselves. Mm-hmm. They paid for the car to drive to Greeley, Colorado for 3 years in the summer. They paid for the gas. Like, who does that? Like, is that not a miracle? That was like a total miracle. It was, everything was paid for. I went to school. Like, who does that? Like, thank you, God. So that's another. And then just that whole thing, I just think, where it says God will do more than you ask or imagine. And it wasn't like I'm singing like Carrie Underwood on, the stage. It was different. I'm signing on the stage, but it's a gift. And not only did he give me that gift, he gave me like a career and all these kids to love on top of that, as a mothering thing too. Mm-hmm. is a miracle. It is a complete miracle. So God has done so many things in my life, and sometimes I look back and, I mean, every day I mess up. Every day I do things wrong, and, I have to apologize. I'm sorry I said that, I should have done it, or I should have done this better, or how could I do this better next time, or whatever. But when you look back and you're like, I know God's here. I know God is in this. I know for such a time as this, I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be where I am right now. Tomorrow may be different. I don't know. But right now, I'm an interpreter, and we'll go on from there and see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen with all this, closing down the education department and all this. I don't know what's going to happen, but I am not worried one iota.
That's
He's
good.
had all my yesterdays, and he has all my tomorrows, and so I'll be fine. I wouldn't mind being a farmer's wife.
You are a farmer's
and just
wife.
like a stay-at-home farmer's wife.
Ask for it.
So that's true.
I think that's something I struggle with, just because it's a trust where you say, like, you can ask. But to me, I've heard those sorts of stories all the time. You ask for something, but you don't get exactly what you're asking for. And that's what I struggle with trust. I'm like, you're going to rug me. I'm going to ask to be whatever, or to be or to have or whatever. And you're going to be like, yeah, sure, over here. And then you're going to put me in Africa as a missionary. I'm like, I didn't ask for this, like you rugged me. I said this. And so the testament to your trust is really inspiring to go for, and then to see it that way rather than being like, I was hoping to be Carrie Underwood, but rather this is so much better.
Oh yeah, it's way better.
That's good, because I definitely struggle with that.
But I think though God would put you where your heart is. I mean, He's not going to put you. He's not going to put a something in your heart that you're like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. He's going to put it in your heart like, this is something I really want to do. Like
I know, and I feel
that's what I believe it is.
I believe that, but I'm just saying I have trouble with, like, part of me is like, He's not going to do that. He is going to hurt you. He's going to put you somewhere. He's going to totally force you to do something if you trust him. That's what I deal with big time, where it's like,
you probably got that from me. So
I'm
sorry.
Well, no. I think it's probably a pretty common thing, to where.
Because I used to think that too.
Yeah. Well, Joseph Campbell. Is it Joseph Campbell? It's either Joseph Campbell or Carl Jung. It's like you have to release the life that you thought that you wanted to embrace the life that is waiting for you type of a quote. I'm not really that very good with quotes, I've noticed on the podcast. And that's something I'd like to get better at, honestly, with AI to help me memorize these quotes so I can actually give them accurately, because I'm always paraphrasing. But it's something like that.
You don't need AI to do that.
No, but it's a good tool, like, to help. Like, it can quiz me. I can say, this is the passage I'm trying to memorize. Like, give me a couple print out some sentences where words are missing and let me, anyway. I know you're just dying to hear more about AI. That's cool.
AI, I don't know. I'll just interject this, and I know we've talked before, but, and I know different generations have thought that it was the end times and, wars and rumors of wars. And, but one thing about the Antichrist was that it would awe people. Like, it would be unbelievable. They couldn't even believe, he would do great and miraculous things that people were just in awe. And so I don't know if the Antichrist is necessarily a person now. I used to think that, but I don't know. That's why I'm very leery and very careful about AI. I don't know. We'll see what comes of it. But, even downstairs at the coffee shop, we were talking about the little chips in your credit card would just fit very easily in your hand, or your, it says that hand or your forehead, the number 666 will be used. Now, there has to be some sort of acceptance of something bad, I think. Like, I don't think your credit card is
Well, just look at COVID.
bad.
Look how fast that changed everything.
That's right.
And made people,
That's
no
right.
one wore a mask. And then everybody's wearing a mask.
Right.
And it was that fast.
Right. And so I think people need to.
No one would have a microchip in their head.
Pay
but
attention.
Maybe they will.
Well, then dogs were getting lost, and they're like, well, let's just put a microchip in kids.
Honestly, it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Fantastic idea.
That's
why I got this installed last week.
So to me, that's what the evil one will do. It'll be like, oh, well, this is fine. Why would this be bad? But there has to be some sort of rebellion against God. Or it seems like there has to be some sort of, I pick you, the Antichrist, instead of Jesus. I mean, it seems like that there has to be something bad about it, but I don't know. It just seems like that's coming right around the corner, so people pay attention.
Yeah. One thought about the forehead, it's like that's what the third eye is right here, like in meditation and whatnot. Like that's the third eye, which is like the spiritual eye in a lot of cultures. So I always wonder if that has something to do with why is it in your forehead?
Right.
It's like that's kind of insight and spiritual sensing and all kinds of stuff like that. The other thing is that that same conversation I was listening to about AI, about the community building, they said that they thought that with the increase of AI and the increase of robots and stuff, where we're just like the humans don't really have much to do, the guy said that humans will most likely rediscover religion just because we don't have we're not chasing technological gains or physical matter, materialistic gain, because we have everything we need. So it's like he hypothesized that maybe humans would rediscover and rededicate themselves to religion. Which religion? That's going to be the question. Is it? He didn't say Christianity. It could be techno God homo deus type. You know what I mean? Like it could be like a technological religion. Define religion. That could be a lot of things.
Well, and I don't like the word religion. Like when somebody, like you said, I'm a devout Christian. I want to just love Jesus, and all the rules and regulations are not Christ-like, I don't think. And a lot of religion, you can't do this, and you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you must do this and this and this and this. And I like to say, I try to do the things I do out of love for Christ, for what he has done for me, and not because, before Sunday, you better talk to 10 people or, no, just love them. Just try to be a good example or an example for Christ for them. But like religion, in fact, I think religion, I don't know, like, I don't want to, like, I don't know if I should say anything or not, but like the Roman Catholic Church, with their, like, you have to go to confession and all that. And it's like, why do I have to tell a priest what I have done wrong? When Jesus died, the curtain ripped in two, and we were allowed into the Holy of Holies. So I can go straight to God. I don't have to tell him. And to add to it, like I have to do 20 Hail Marys or whatever. I have a sweet friend who's Catholic, and she and I have talked, but when you add to things, like I have to do this, I have to go do this, I have to do Hail Marys, however many, then you are doing things to forgive yourself, and that you are taking glory away from God. He already did it. He already died and rose, and he already did it all. And you don't have to do anything. You have to believe. And then from that belief, the love that you show others is to honor him and to do things. But like, you don't have to go jump in the river 3 times. And, I don't know all the things that they make people do.
Catholics jump in the river?
I don't know. But people will say, well, oh, you better do this or do that. No, if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that God raised Jesus from the dead, you will be saved, So I don't want to preach, but I do want people to know.
Oh, they do. It's interesting that you say that because, I grew up in Riverton Friends Church. That's what I I don't think I went to another church. Went to Sam's church for a while, which was across the street. So it was different, but similar
and wonderful
enough.
people. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, both were great.
Yeah.
They're just different. I mean, every church is going to be
sure.
Every jiu-jitsu gym I go to is just a little different.
Yeah.
But one Riverton Friends, my experience at Riverton Friends is very laid back. It's got a Southern California influence, obviously. That's where Wes and Adam trained. Trained, I guess that's what you'd say. That's where they were taught. That's where they learned. That's where they, all that kind of stuff. And there is at old Riverton Friends, it's much different now, new people and whatnot, but it had a very Southern California hippie, surfer vibe to it, I would say, especially if you watch the documentary about Lonnie Frisbee, which is like, if you go all the way back, that's kind of where Riverton Friends, like the deepest influences.
Maybe.
I think it'd be interesting to ask Wes about that.
Yeah, that would be
or
a
Adam.
Wes question.
But that's where it all happened. The hippie movement, and then Lonnie came in, and then I can't remember the main guy. He was the preacher of the mega church that accepted Lonnie and used him for his gifts and whatnot. Anyway, when I started doing the peyote stuff with the Native Americans, the Quapaws, one of the things I really liked was the rules and the reverence for certain things. And as far as like, hey, do not come in here if you're not spiritually, not that they wouldn't let you in, but there's a little bit more emphasis on that. So like we do the sweat lodge the day before.
Yes.
And I was like, why do we do it? Like, we're purifying ourselves. Like, anybody that does the sweat lodge the day before, which is not pleasant, where you have to drink Buckeye tea and vomit 4 times so you're purified. You drink it, you go out the back, you puke, you come back in, you do another round. You drink it, you go out, puke, you do it 4 times, and you're spiritually pure, which, interestingly enough, I even told Everett this, my friend Everett, who kind of welcomed me in. He's kind of the young leader of he's the one that revived the whole thing, the whole lodge and everything, because the Quapaws didn't do that for a long time. I was like, hey, last night's sit was like really easy. He's like, yeah, did you do the sweat lodge? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, that's why. Like, you were pure going in. It was way easier to stay up. It was way easier to pray, because sometimes when people come in, you can feel like someone lost their dad one time. Their family came in, lost their father. I'm talking, heavy. I was like, what is going on? I mean, I felt it. The gravity just increased. I go, that is dark. Or not dark, but it was just heavy. It was very like, they are in pain, and I can feel it. And, but one thing, I liked the reverence. I liked the spirit. It separated it, because RFC, and no diss on RFC, it was a beautiful place to grow up, and many amazing people, and not that they did it right or wrong or anything. I'm just noticing the differences. There wasn't anything sacred. The sanctuary wasn't necessarily sacred. It was very open and welcome, and take your shoes off or don't dress up. You can wear just your t-shirt or whatever, which is great. But I kind of was drawn to hey, what we're about to do is not Sunday school. Like, we are going in. And I think that's partially probably speaking to my prayer warrior prophecy or whatever. It's probably noticing that of like, yeah, you can't just do this. Like, you kind of have to be a little bit more, whatever, you prepared, because maybe I'm meant to do something different than these other people. But I always like that, to where this is how we sit. This is when I go up to get the medicine, there's a string that connects all of us, and I can't get that string, wrapped around. Like, when I go up, he blesses the peyote. I turn to the fire, drink my peyote. I make sure I go backwards completely and not get twisted. And thankfully, they were very kind. And, hey, well, don't turn that way. I'm like, I would stop and this way? Yes, this way. Okay. And I'd go sit back down. But I don't know. I kind of was drawn to the more structure of it. Obviously, I don't want to be doing 25 Hail Marys and everything. But I did kind of like the structure and the separation of everyday life, and then the separation of like, hey, when we go in here, like, make sure you wear good clothes, or you know what I mean? Like, make sure that you're switching. Like, this isn't just you're in the holy of holies, or you're closer spiritually. You're on sovereign ground, or you know what I mean, something like that. So different takes or whatever.
And I think that's true of Catholics too.
Yeah.
When I went to my friend's wedding, everybody walked in and they knelt.
Yeah.
and did their thing.
Yeah.
And then got up. And there was like not talking, like when we go into church, like, hey, how are you? I saw you Friday night or Thursday afternoon or whatever. It's good to see you, or how are you doing? And so it's not bad.
No.
But it's not as focused as like you're talking about. However, I do think too, as the, for instance, I have a great friend. I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about her. We did a little bit already, but when she has stage 4 cancer, all of a sudden the small talk goes out the door, and boy, when you come in, you know, you are riveted, and you are way more than just another, oh, it's been a fine week, we're doing fine, we're just coming to church, and I want to know, how are you doing? I mean, that fellowship is wonderful too. And we actually have a break now and have fellowship.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you need to come back to church. And but we have worship, and then there's a break, and you go fellowship and talk to people, and then they come back for the sermon or service. So, but when we are in a third or a first world country, and so our problems aren't, but
my Wi-Fi sucks.
But if and when, like if there's a war, I think our prayer lives are going to change immensely, in which they should be strong now for those people who are in war, and for like Ukraine. Our families came from Ukraine, and so it's like, I wonder how many of those people over there are cousins, you know, far off cousins, or that stayed. Their families didn't stay. And I know that this last year was 150 years, this last summer, in 2024, since our ancestors came from Russia and Ukraine and Poland, Switzerland, Germany, France.
Russia?
And they came over, and on the graves there was a marker. They had gone around and showed all the people that came over on the ship. And I mean, they lost family members and friends. People died on that I think it was a 3-week journey over the ocean to get to America, you know. And but they put a sticker on the graves of the people, and it said, "Thank you for your decision." And I just walked through the graveyard, I mean, at the church, at Eden Church.
In Kansas?
In Mound Ridge, and just like cried. I mean, just like, what courage. I mean, can you imagine leaving the United States and going to a different country, and you don't know? I mean, they had sent some men before, and they had come back and said, yeah, there's land, and there's, you know, so they weren't going totally not knowing what's coming, but they came through, you know, on the ocean. They came through blizzards. They got to South Dakota and couldn't go any farther, and there were blizzards.
That still cracks me up.
Why?
You pick South Dakota?
Yeah.
Go south.
Because they were like, there's a story of 5 kids that were going home from school that one day, and they lost, it was such a blizzard, they couldn't get home. And so when the blizzard stopped, they were buried and dead. They died. Wow. 5 boys. Wow. 5 kids trying to get home from school. And how they would put from their house to the barn, sometimes the blizzards they'd put a rope so that whoever was going out to feed the horses, they would follow this rope till they got to the barn.
We left our home for this.
Yeah, and the grasshoppers ate their crops one time. They had nothing to eat, and
surely they hunted.
Yeah, they hunted, and
they needed me.
A lot of men had to clear the forest to build a house and stuff, which was not chainsaws. You know, it was an axe or whatever, and there was tons of stories about the people who were here, who were kind and helped, you know, these new settlers. But you know, thank God our family came to Kansas. And actually, my great grandma, your great great grandma was in South Dakota, and great grandpa, they were family. I mean, some families came to Kansas, some stayed in South Dakota. So he had gone up there to visit or whatever and met her. and brought her back to Kansas. So our family grew up, expanded and flourished in Kansas. And actually, some of the best farmland too is just very fertile farmland that
ocean, ancient ocean soil.
Could be.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So that we have been truly blessed by being south. Like, I'm not going north, I'm going south. But, the courage it took to do that. And now it's like, would we have the courage? I remember Casey saying, because Grandma wrote those books and told us about the history and stuff. I remember Casey saying, if it gets bad here, I have the courage to go because I know my ancestors did it. And I could go to, I'm always like, I'm
China.
going to Australia. I'm going to Australia.
So many things that can kill you down there. Spiders, lizards, crocodiles, buffalo.
And remember
mosquitoes,
the story of Alexander and the no good, horrible, very bad day?
Barely.
Some days are like that, even in Australia.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm just moving to Australia. So
not a bad spot.
Anyway,
lots of coastal lines.
It's as you look back, you come from hardy stock, and they made some courageous decisions to come here. And we've been blessed because of that. And I hope that you are blessed because of me and my decisions, and that it'll trickle down to generation after generation. And that's my prayer all the time, that, my grandchildren to the 1,000th generation will be blessed. And as we have been blessed, and that will continue to follow through our family line, and that we can bless other people in the process. So
powerful.
God is powerful. His powerful story coming. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit, and we'll go back to being a mom, and then let's talk a bit about when the second, whatever his name is, he showed up. What was that like? Because you talked a little bit about it before, where you had me, and now you've added someone, so now the dynamic has changed. What was that like?
I remember telling you I was so tired, being pregnant and stuff, and I said, as soon as the baby comes, I will play more with you. Dad would play with you a lot. And I said, I'd be like, I'm so tired, I will play with you. But then Casey was born, and then I was like totally exhausted. And so he was up every few hours eating, and I nursed him. So he, I was a walking zombie for a while. And Dad stepped in and played with you a lot. Grandma and great-grandma came and played with you a lot, and took care of Casey and took care of me. But the dynamic was different. You loved him too. I look back at some of our videos, and it seems like there are a lot of Casey, and you'd be playing over here, and I'd be like, I think part of it was like, I wish I would have gotten more of you as a when you were little, itty bitty more. And I didn't want to miss that with him, but I kind of feel bad about those, because I'm like, you were like, Mama, look at me. And I was like, just a minute,
Yeah.
And I hate that. I hate that on those videos.
It's natural though.
Well, because you're the one that probably needed more attention than Casey. He was taking it all in, he was looking around, taking it all in. But you guys were just so fun. I mean, you were both good kids. Like, when some people talk about their kids and they're screaming and kicking and acting terrible, you guys, I don't remember you doing that. And maybe, I don't know, because maybe I was like, stop it now. I'm not putting up with that. No way. But you just weren't. I mean, you did fuss some. Have you seen the video of you eating?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like a family lore.
There's one of you eating, and you're just so tired, and you're trying to get it. And I start laughing, and you're like looking around. But that was before Casey. But we just enjoyed you kids so much. Both Dad and me, just thought you guys. I remember one time we went to church with Terry, and Taryn was there. And we were sitting in the row. I think we were standing singing a song or something, and Dad was holding you, and Taryn came over, and she was just going to say hi or whatever, and you were looking at her, and you said, my daddy, like, go away. This is my daddy. And I know that made Dad feel really good, but we just enjoyed you. I mean, we just wanted you guys around. We enjoyed watching you, and we'd be saying, hey, look what they're doing or saying now. And I wrote down some of the things that you said I wrote down more that you said, and I think you were more vocal than Casey, and it might have been because you were older and you could talk and stuff. And so I don't have quite as many quotes that he said. One of them, and I don't remember who it was actually, for instance, just funny little things. When you got out of the bathtub, we were trying to put your shirt on after we dried you off and everything, tried to put your shirt on, and you were just a little damp yet, and it would kind of get stuck, and you were like, sticky, I'm sticky still. And it's just cute little things like that I remember. But I don't know, you guys were just, I just couldn't have asked for anything better than you and Casey, and just, it was the greatest time of life ever. Just
was it ever not great?
Yeah, I mean, there were times, and as I look back, I know Beth Moore, she said, I mean, I was exhausted like every day, and I would think, well, maybe when you get a little older, you'll be able to do this on your own. You won't need me to tie your shoes. You won't need me to, and it was exhausting. And so the people who are in the thick of it right now that have little kids, and you have to wipe their nose, and you have to wipe their butt, and you have to wipe, you have to feed them, and you have to wipe their face because they have food all over them. It's the hardest job you'll ever have, but it was my best job. It was the most wonderful. And thankfully, Dad, I always say Dad did two things for me. He had a good job so I could stay home, because that's what I wanted to do. And he bought a dishwasher, because for a while we didn't have a dishwasher. And I was like felt like hours spending at the dishwasher instead of playing with you kids and doing things with you guys. But I did get to stay home. Now, you loved dinosaurs, and you played with them more than Casey did. And I will say, after a while, after the 100th day, and you'd say, Mama, come play dinosaurs. And I'd be like, we've played that the last I'd be like, let's go do something else or whatever. But yeah, you did like dinosaurs, and we played a lot of dinosaurs.
Still do. And
Grandpa would come. A huge reprieve was when Grandma and Grandpa came, or when we went there. And Grandma was wonderful, because she would just take over. She would feed you guys, she would play with you guys, and I would just like sit down and like, oh, I have a relaxation, a break. But you're still there. I can still see you. I can still monitor what you're doing and make sure you're okay. Like, my worst dreams have been, in fact, I had a dream the other night, and I was like, what was that? But you were little again. You and Casey were little. And I was around the corner, and you were crying. Both of you were crying. And I came around, and I was just horrified. I was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I was running to you when I woke up. So I don't know what was wrong, but you were kind of at an end of a hallway, and there were doors there, and you were both crying. And I was just like, oh. I mean, for a long time, my heart hurt that day, because I was just like, I don't know what's wrong, and I want to help you. But was I a perfect mother? Absolutely not. As I look back, I'm like, thank God you're still alive, because you did all sorts of things that probably were not the best, and I should have stopped or been better, watched you better, or whatever. But that was the best ever. And when you graduated, and left and went, I mean, at least Casey was still there. And so I didn't mourn completely. But when you left, I mean, like, you took my heart. You took a part of my heart with me, and you will forever have a part of my heart. And you went to college and then to California, which was probably a good thing. You went to California, and the fact that I couldn't see you, or, you know, your car wasn't in the driveway. I'm like, where is he? What's he doing? Is he okay? That was healing for me. Like when I couldn't watch you anyway, but when Casey left, every day. I mean, there was not one day I didn't cry on the way to work and cry on the way home, because I was still at Riverton, and I would cry on the way to work and cry on the way home because you were gone. I'm like, that's what I always wanted, and you're gone, and I still hate it. I still want you guys to move back home and be around the farm and, you know, do more things together, because, yeah, you were my life. I kind of was like at Christmas time, because that whole first semester, I mean, like there was not a day I cried and cried and cried. But then at Christmas, I was kind of like, okay, hang on here. Now you can do some of the things you want to do. You know, you don't have ball games to go to, and you don't have PTA and parent-teacher conferences and everything that kids do, and cooking so much food. You can sew, or you can write, or you can, you know, visit other people or do your garden. I mean, because then it was kind of refinding myself, because I remember you guys took me to, or it was Mother's Day, and you said, where do you want to go? I'm like, I don't know where I want to go. I know Colton likes this, Casey likes this, so that's where, you know, we always go, because we wanted to do things you guys like to do, and I'm like, I don't even know where I want to go.
Probably Pizza Hut.
I think I picked Olive Garden at that point, but yeah, it would be Pizza Hut today. I know you guys think I'm crazy. Stuffed crust supreme, I will take it any day.
Very good pizza.
So
I know you're saying a lot of good things, but was there ever, like, what was the most difficult aspect of raising two boys? Particularly, I'm assuming it's got to be around the teenage years.
I would say driving was horrible. Horrible.
Some of my best memories were in the car.
Oh, driving was hard. I was like, oh, God.
Oh, when we started driving?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When you guys started driving.
Oh, I see.
And at first, you know, you had to drive with somebody, and to not be in control when this kid's driving, and I'm like, slow down. And probably the worst thing is watching you drive away. You probably don't even know, but I would stand on the porch, out in the porch, and I would, about to cry right now, and I would watch you drive away, and you would be driving like, and then I couldn't see you anymore. And you'd be in the van, taking the van somewhere, and I would just be, God, please be with him. And I remember Grandma said, you're going to have to let them go. You have to let them do their own thing. But I'm like, that's my child. And that's, you know, I think sometimes I over-hovered over you guys, and sometimes I didn't hover enough. There were both things. And, but driving would be terrible. I was terrible. Hated it. And how many times did I get a phone call?
A few.
I'm in the ditch, Mom. You know,
Yeah.
Can you come help? Yes, I will come help. Those were horrible, and thank God I didn't have any horrible phone call. I mean, we made
They're
it through those.
funny to talk about now.
Yeah, and Casey called more, you know, at least a few times, and
I didn't have a phone.
Your truck
so
is in the ditch, or I hit a mailbox or something.
He hit a mailbox?
So
I thought I was the only one that did that.
We replaced it, and it was fine. But that one thing interesting that I was telling somebody the other day with two boys, and I'm sure this might be with girls too, I don't know, but there would be times when you would drive me crazy, and I would be like, whose child is this? But it seemed like at that time, Casey and my relationship was very good. It seemed like it was always opposite. Like if you were in a rebellious little mood or whatever, we would be, for that season, month, or I don't know, usually wasn't too long, Casey and I would be very close. And then sometimes he would be like, are you kidding me? Quit talking to me that way or whatever, He would be on the side, but you and I would be very close. So it seemed like whenever one of you was acting up, the other one wasn't. And it was like tolerable.
Interesting.
Not both of you at the same time. I never remember both of you. And you were both pretty well behaved. You were ornery and did some things, at Corey White when he would come walking, I'd be like, what did they do now?
Pretty much harmless, I would say.
Yeah, it was not anything terrible. Like taking all the balls out of the mice in the computer lab or,
Oh my God.
something like that. It wasn't anything like they did something horrible there. But still, I'm just like, okay, what? And I think, and I apologize to you because I think a lot of times I put perfection on you. And when you weren't perfect, I'd be like, why did you do that? Or whatever. And so I apologize now for doing that to you because nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. And people make mistakes and that's how we learn. And I've gotten much more grace for people now. So if I'd go back, I think I would like to talk to you more like, why'd you do that? What were you thinking? Or how could I help you through this situation? And what are you going to do? Because I usually jumped in and saved you. I would go to the teacher and say whatever to try to get you out of trouble because you were perfect. You were my child. And by gosh, now when I see parents doing that, I'm just like, oh, I'm embarrassed by the Casey Mayfield. I'm sorry. I used to do that too. Like, why didn't I just let, I should have let you suffer some that I bailed you out when.
Maybe. Casey actually had a good story the other day, a good observation with Jace. And I noticed it with my nieces and nephews too. It's like all the motherly, the feminine energies, they love to step in and do things a lot of the time for the child, whether it's in Casey's example, Jace was having trouble with a video game level and he was like, can you do this for me? And Casey's like, no, like I'll guide you. I'll tell you like, oh, you should try this or whatever, but I'm not going to do it for you. Like some people just take the controller and there you go, you're good.
Yes.
And so he took, it's not a hard and fast rule, but more of a masculine, like you're going to have to figure it out on your own. I'll be here to get you if you do fall.
Yes.
But I'm more supporting you as far as like, I think you did the right thing, saving, like that's what that motherly feminine energy is for. It's like you go in and save, and maybe you needed more of a masculine energy to balance that out, to see like, hey, not right now. Like he's stuck on the side of the road or he'll be fine. Let him figure it out at the last last ditch effort. We'll go get him, or something like that. But it was interesting. Jace battled through it. I don't know, took him a while, but then he ended up beating the level. And it's like, good. Do you feel the good feelings of overcoming that and persevering? It's like that's so. I think about that a lot, about the feminine and the masculine energies, specifically on raising kids. I don't have kids. I have nieces and nephews though, and so I kind of am a proxy to them, and I see that back and forth all the time. And there's not a one better than the other, but I will say is, for my observation, is so incredibly important for it to be balanced. That's from all my observations, my scientific observations. It's got to be balanced, because when it goes one way or the other, that's when I see things not play out in a beneficial way. Either way, feministic energies. It's like the child becomes weak and can't do things for themselves and whatever. And then on the masculine, it's almost like they're in danger. They get hurt. They get forgotten about on whatever level, from minor to severe, on both of them. So the only thing I can say is just balance. They just need balance. They need to push and pull, and the parent needs to probably assess each situation, which is
Right.
probably tough,
Right.
you know, because it's like a situation, which one are you going to choose? And probably maybe you don't always choose correctly. That's fine. But choosing is important and balance. So I noticed that a lot. So I wouldn't say that that's a bad thing. I just feel like it needed to be of a balance.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I should have done less. I think.
It's okay.
Yeah. Because you worked so hard on your senior project, I remember. And I think it was late, or you were going to turn it in late or something. And I was like emailing the teacher saying, he has worked every Saturday, you know, since who knows when, and done so much work. When some of these kids have done overnight, you know, they did diddly squat. And you had made that whole 2 DVD documentary, which was fabulous. And I was just
thank you.
don't dock him. You know, here he's done all this work, which there was no need. I did not need to email the teachers.
Well, I appreciate that.
They know, you know, they knew who was doing what.
Yeah.
And that was fun going to the church and having your production. It was too loud, but it was it was fun. I was proud of you.
It was a fun project to make. Casey, I was going to say, I had a question about what do you think, what are the major differences between Casey and I, specifically as you raised us, as we lived in the house and everything? What were the two, or what were the differences between us?
One thing is, to me, you're a daredevil. Like you get that from Dad too. Like he went to KU the first day of classes and drove straight to his class, went there, and then after the class went and got an apartment and everything. While Casey, on the other hand, and me, I would go a week before, 2 weeks before, a month before, whatever, get my apartment, get food, get everything I need, go looking where my classes are and everything. So you, not that Casey doesn't have courage, he does. He is like, got courage.
Do you know what Casey means?
Courage.
Bravery. It really means bravery.
The whole Colorado, what he did.
The Alaskan fishing boat.
Yes.
Yeah.
He has got a tremendous amount of courage and bravery. So I'm not saying that, but more spontaneous. Like you'll go make a pile of leaves and crawl up on the roof and jump off, you know.
That's just stupidity.
But Casey, I would not expect him to do that. You would drive the van however fast, I don't even want to know how fast it was, through the pasture.
As fast as it would go.
Casey would not do that. You know, Casey would.
He did.
He did
do that.
Careful.
Once I showed him, he was like, dang, this is awesome. I'm like, I know, right?
And there's like logs in the pasture you could have hit. Anyway. Yeah. There's the stuff I don't even want to know that you guys did. I know. Oh. But yeah. But Casey was also soft-spoken, and you were a lot more talkative. Like even in high school, you guys would get in the car after practice or after school, and I'd say to Casey, you know, how was your day? Fine. Well, what'd you learn? Nothing. You would get in the car and I would say, how was your day? It was pretty good. You know, we did this in math and we did this in English, and you should have seen so-and-so, and they were doing this or that or whatever, and just talk. Now, it's not that Casey won't. Casey does. But you have to catch him, or I have to catch him when he's ready to talk. And then he's great to talk to. So it's not that he's being mean, or right. He just was not as talkative as you were. And, you know, part of that could be because you were older and or
maybe I was talking too much.
You got a lot of spankings. I can think of 1 or 2 Casey got. Like, you got a lot of spankings. But, you know, Casey was watching, I'm sure, and was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that, you know, or whatever. So, not bad spankings. You weren't beaten or anything, but you were.
Let me tell you. Where do I begin?
The fire. I thought you were going to say the fire story.
The when we burned the field down?
No, where I chased you with a broom.
Oh, I got a lot more spankings before then. That was the only time I didn't get a spanking because I outran you. And I was laughing so hard because I was like, no way. She's going to bash me with this broom.
Anyway, but you both are just sweet as can be. I mean, you have the sweetest hearts, the most compassionate. Both of you are just compassionate. You're kind. You look out for people. Like when you see that one day I yelled at you and I shouldn't have, because somebody had been mean to Josh and you were like all over the guy. And I was like, get in the car, hurry up. And then you told me what you were doing. And I'm like, oh, get back. No, I didn't say that. Get back out and get him. I didn't say that. But, you see the underdogs and you have compassion, and you both reach out. And I think I love that about both of you. You have soft hearts, and you're kind. I know about more of your work issues because you've shared them with me, and your ability to be kind when people are not being kind to you instead of lashing back, kind of like what you were saying about when people act that way, deep inside there's a pain somewhere. I mean, people don't act ugly usually unless there's something that's, a pain that those words are coming out in hurtful ways. And instead of lashing right back and adding to the fire, you have grown because you had to as a waiter at Red Oak. You put up with some people being unkind to you and griping at you, and you still had to say, well, I'm sorry, your steak is whatever, or I'm sorry, you're not, and I'll fix that and I'll help you,
And I dropped their steak on the floor. No, I never did that.
No, you didn't do that. It just, I think that is a good lesson, and that built character in you. And Casey has had jobs that I know it built character in him. I mean, that whole Alaskan thing. I mean, can you even imagine? I can't. All the things that he did in that trip, and whoa, that just, yeah. So you both are just incredible people. Like, I'm so incredibly proud of who you both are and what you are doing in life. And I know. To me, that difficult times may be coming, but I know you guys will stand for what is right and what is good and what is honorable, and you will not be sucked into this ugliness. The other morning I woke up and I was mad at somebody, and and it was more than mad. It was like, I am so stinking tired of
frustrated?
The crap that this person. And right then, I'm reading a book about Israeli-Palestinian. Interesting. It has opened my eyes to such a new perspective of the whole process, and even my belief system. Because I'm like, Israeli, we have to support them. If we don't, it says in the Bible. And I'm just like, this whole book has just opened my eyes to some things that have been going on. That's like, wait a second here. Now, do I really believe this, or I need to revisit this? And so I've been just poring over the scripture saying, when was the promise given, and what does it really mean, and who was it for? And, it was for Abraham's children. Well, we who accept Christ are grafted in. So are we children of the promise? And that means these Palestinian Christians, they are part of the promise. And who gets this land? And is the land really, So anyway, that morning I was thinking of the hate, and some of the things in this book is just like, oh my goodness, they're doing this to each other. I mean, they're taking people and putting them on this far off, freezing cold place with no food, no nothing, and leaving them there. How could you hate somebody so much that you would do that. And then this thought came of this person. And I was just
Checkmate.
like, yes. And I was just like, oh Lord, I'm so sorry. I don't want that. I don't want that hatred in my heart. You know, please help me work through this and help me, because that was so vivid, that picture. And he's like, you're doing the same thing. And I was like, oh my goodness, I repent. I don't want that. And I want good for this person. And so, you know, I just started praying for this person, and because I'm like, I don't want no hate. Corrie ten Boom was like, no hate, and she had terrible things done to her and to her family, to her sister and stuff. So, yeah, what were we talking about?
The differences between me and Casey.
Well, that was.
I think that's where it started.
There was another thing, but like one thing that you guys have both done has pushed me, because Mama said, you know, I grew up in the church, and I grew up, everybody went to church. Good people went to church. And so we went to church. Mama said to go to church. But then Mama can't eat for you. Mama can't digest Bible verses for you or believe for you. You have to have your own belief. And you and Casey both came back. We were talking about you and Casey, I guess. You and Casey both came back, and you were like, it's just a book. It's an archaic book. And I'm like, oh, I never thought of it as an archaic book, but okay. And really made me think. I'm like, okay, now what do you believe? Because you better know what you believe, because times, I think, are going to get hard. And if somebody has a gun to your head and says, renounce Christ, if you're like wishy-washy, I don't know what I believe, I want to be sure of what I believe. I watched a documentary on Billy Graham, and that was a life-changing, that was a watershed moment, because it said that people were saying that to him. And so he was the same thing, kind of backed up, like,
saying what? That
the book was archaic. Oh, yeah. And so he kind of backed up and was like, is it? And so he prayed and he read the Bible, and he came to the conclusion that it was truth, and that was God's truth. And so any other people coming in saying this is archaic or this is not untrue, he could say, okay, you can believe what you want. I believe it's the truth. And so it kind of gives you hope, because even Mother Teresa, which I just think she was amazing, she doubted. And I've read like every book I could get my hands on about Mother Teresa. And she doubted. She sent a letter to, I don't know, the Archbishop of, I don't know, whatever, and saying, am I on the right track? Is God really real? Is God really wanting me to do these things, you think? Am I way off base? And so, you think of these holy people, and if they had doubts, then I'm like, okay, well, my doubts aren't so bad after all. And your comments to me made me dig real deep and like, well, do I believe this or not? But I can tell you that I do. And I can tell you that the times I've memorized verses, the times like that will come back to me, or like that whole manna story was just like mind blowing. I'm like, yes, yeah. I know. Inside I know that's truth. So the things that I have learned have helped me in ways that other books don't, like other quotes don't. And I'm a quote person too. I have a whole book of my favorite quotes. So I get that, but that the Bible is different, and it's like a layer cake. And the things that it taught me at this point, now I've grown a little bit, and I read the same verse, and it's like, oh, I didn't get that last time, and now I get it this, now I understand it this much. And then a few years later, I have grown or backslidden, whatever. Whatever the case is, and it comes around, kind of like you talk about these curved thoughts. And then I come over here and it's like, oh, okay. Now I learn it in a little different perspective. And to me, God's making you ready for those times and he's like, okay, now you're ready for a piece of potato, Yeah. Now you're ready for a piece of meat. Mm-hmm. Now you're ready for whatever, is next. Now because you've learned this, and now he's going to teach you this. And that's one of my prayers, like life prayers. Teach me your way that I may walk in your truth. Give me an undivided heart that I may fear your name. Teach me your way. Every day, teach me. And so that when you guys both, questioned, it really made me go back. I'm like, okay, let's back up here and strengthen because I'm like, I'm either going to go, you're either in or out. Like he told me way back when you were a tiny baby, mm-hmm. It's like, I'm either Lord of all or not Lord at all. So you pick. And I know people like, why would a good God send people to hell? And I'm like, he doesn't send people to hell. You choose. You choose. It's like, in the Bible it says, I've set before you life and death. Pick life. He's like, come over here. Come on over here. And some people are like, no, I don't want you. I don't want anything to do with you. But it says in the Bible that he is the light. Like there's no sun or moon or electricity or anything in heaven. He is the light. So when you go to heaven, heaven is life with him forever. So if you don't pick him, if you're like, I don't want Jesus, I don't want anything to do. If you don't pick him, then you've picked hell. You've picked this other path. This is what I believe. And
existence without God.
Existence without God. And so God is good. God is love. So if you pick existence without him, you have no love. There's no love. I mean, can you imagine? There's no love. There's no good. There's no light. There's, fear. It says in heaven, there's no fear. There's no tears. There's no sorrow. There's, fear, tears, sorrow. And it's like, I have, my blood is here. I've defeated death. I have bought back. I think that God gave us the earth. God gave us, I don't know how to put it, but then Satan stole it. Like we had the deed to the earth and Satan stole it. And then Jesus came and defeated Satan. So now we can choose. You're either in or out. You can choose. And it's your choice. I mean, what a gentleman. He doesn't just say, you need to do that now. It's like, it's your choice. Which one? It's kind of like, I always equate it to, do you want somebody to be like, here's your birthday present. I had to buy this for you, or do you want somebody to say, I made this for you. And it took like 3 weeks or whatever, 3 months to make this for you. And I've thought of you all the time and I hope you like it. Which one do you want? He doesn't.
Depends on what they're giving me.
God doesn't want somebody, like, okay, gotta go with you. He wants somebody to say, thank you for doing that for me. And I'm so blessed to get to be with you. So
have you ever seen the painting from Wes Warner of, I can see it in my head clear as day.
I guess not.
I can't remember if it was.
Did he paint it?
Oh yeah. Oh. I can't remember if it was a dream that he had or like a vision or I just thought it up or whatever. But it's this painting of like a church and there's like this crowd of people and there's like a stage and maybe people are on stage playing or whatever. And everybody in the audience is like, praying or doing something, singing or whatever. But they're all like, give me, or focusing on something different. And there's one person who's like looking, and then he painted Jesus, and he's like super bright and colorful, and it's like this direct connection, and it's just this one person who is just focused, like, I'm just here for you or whatever. Yes. It's a great painting that he did.
Yes.
Kind of what you're saying.
I do believe that we treat him as a genie. What do I want today? Well, I mean, even if it's good things, I want this person healed. Please heal this person. Please make this situation good or whatever. But, when you look back at your life, what are the situations in your life that you can think of that you really grew? It wasn't the easy ones. It was the tough ones. It's the ones when somebody called you out. I had a person who, here I am and I proclaim Christ and want people to know him and have the joy of knowing him. And she's like, your God must be, I have her quote written down because it was like, what kind of God do you have if you're so scared? I was like, back to the trust issue,
Sure.
like, do I roll with the punches as life goes on? Or am I sitting here? And I went through a really dark time of like, oh gosh, what's going to happen today? Something horrible.
Demonic.
I know something horrible is going to happen today. I have to be ready. I have to be, what kind of life is that? Rather than just like, today's going to be a good day and I'm going to roll with the punches and whatever comes my way, I know that God is big enough to go with me. And, but it's hard. That's hard. That's hard for me sometimes is like that fear of like I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose Casey. I don't want to lose like all these.
But you will.
Loved ones.
That's
well,
like the
hopefully
truth.
you'll lose me first.
Well, I mean, you're gonna lose even if you do die before us or whatever. Like you're gonna lose us in that manner. So I try to go to the truth of it. Like, what's the truth? Like, oh, the truth is that is going to happen, and then I try to deal with. Then I try to wrestle with it because there's no getting out of that. Like, I'm going to lose everything that I had. My body, my mind, my relationships, and my computer, and like I'm going to lose it all at some point. So then I try to get to the end of that. It's like, can you deal with that?
Right.
It's like,
can you deal with it?
Maybe not right now, but I'm going to try. If it's like exposure therapy, if I can expose myself to the truth, which not many people do, and I'm not saying I'm do it all the time or anything, because it's very like some of the truths like, wow, okay, that's enough of that. But wow, I was gonna Adam's discipleship. There's a part, it's pretty early, it might be the first lesson of the discipleship, but he talks about the most precious resource that a human has is, what would you say? What would you say?
Well, resource on earth,
Yeah.
like relationships.
Whoa. That's kind of, most people would say time. Like, as long as you have time,
gotcha.
right? Everybody has this time. And he's like, well, that's more of like a blunt measurement of the value of the resource. He's like, the actual value of it is attention. What you do with your attention. You have like all the time, you don't know how much you have, but it's like, what do you spend the time on?
That's good.
So talking about your mental loops, what's bad, that's like your attention, which I think it's conscious spiritual energy that you're giving to something. And so I try to think about that a lot, especially with like politics and stuff lately. Like, how many liberals are just like giving all their energy and attention to Trump, and then vice versa, how many conservatives are just giving all their energy and focus to some weird culture war transgender thing where it's like, do you even know a transgender person? Does anything that Trump does, like, does it really affect you type thing? Just an example, but like they just get consumed. And it's like your attention is just the attention. There's another word that concern. Adam uses the word concern. Where do you spend your concern? And so I just try to reflect on that quite a bit. And like, what are you focusing on right here? It's like, common example is like the laundry. Like you see this giant pile of laundry and you're like, oh my gosh, you can choose. It goes back to Viktor Frankl, the quote that we read earlier. It's like, I can choose to be all bummed about it and like, oh, annoyed, or it's like, I got clean clothes, and that's a meditation in itself. Like you just take that and expand it on your whole life, especially with the knowledge that this all ends one way or the other. It ends, whether it's you go first or I go first. Like, it ends. Like, either I go to Casey's funeral or he goes to mine, or we bow out at the same time, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that we are the last two soldiers in the fight against the robots and we save our village. But just what you focus on is powerful, which is also part of the discipleship. Adam talks about the motivation that people have. Two types of motivation, one going towards, one going away. Are you running from something? Is that your motivation to achieve greatness? You're running away from meaninglessness, a life of meaninglessness. Or are you in pursuit of something great because it's drawing you or whatever? Very different motivations, and neither are good or bad. Sometimes it is, get the heck away from this thing. Like Jordan Peterson, when you do his self-authoring, there's a part where there's two parts. One where you describe the ideal future, which is like, move towards this ideal future, write out the perfect day, perfect job, perfect family life, perfect whatever. Just you write it, you just fantasize, create it, move towards that. The second is make hell, create hell. What would hell be for you? Hell would be, I got to wake up and go to some factory job. No offense to factory workers, factory job that I got to clock in and out. I barely make enough money to support that's part of what I wrote down. Don't focus on that, but just know it's there. Know that it's behind you, or I always point behind, bad behind, good forward. But know that like, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, that prophesied hell is waiting for me if I'm like undisciplined, or if I don't, I'm going to sleep in today or whatever. And know that the heaven is ahead of me if I do what I'm supposed to do, type thing. So,
See, my hell, when you were going to say you have to describe your hell, mine was going to be a lot worse than that. Like a dungeon with my hands tied and it's cold and there's snakes and mice and rats nibbling at my skin, and the walls are coming in. That's
horrifying, but I mean.
So we're talking about two different kind of.
Well, that's more of like a fantasy type of or maybe like a literal translation of like fear and terror, which yes is scary and burning for all eternity in flames like that. I've been close to a fire. It does not feel good. I don't want to live in that for the rest of my life. Such a human concept. Pain and whatnot doesn't even exist. Anyway, it's much scarier to me when you actually apply the concept of hell to, like, have you ever met someone in hell? I know you have. Everybody has.
Satan?
No.
Who?
People. People can exist.
Oh.
People can exist in hell. I'll tell you one. When I talk to friends that are in horrible marriages, and they'll tell me, she does this and he did that, and I'm just sitting there thinking, you're living in hell. You are literally living in hell. Like, you are hell on earth because of this situation. Or here's a great example. When you run into a homeless person, is it easy to look at them in the eyes? Not for me. I have to force myself to like humanize, but I don't. If they're on the side of the road, like, I don't want to look over. Dude, poor dude's in hell. He's in hell. And you know that intrinsically, and you don't want to look at it, because it's like, if he was doing great, of course, I'm like, hey, what's up? How are you? If they're holding a brand new baby, I'm not like, oh, I don't want to see that. My friend, I don't want to see that. I'm like, wow, look at this beautiful creation of life and all the good vibes and the love, and you two are just glowing. Yeah, give me the heaven that is that, versus, wow, this guy is down on his luck. He might be, screwed up on drugs. He might have made the wrong choice, whatever. I'm not picking on anybody, but very different energy, and it's very difficult. So when I say, like, imagine your hell, the hell could be, I'm trapped in a loveless marriage with someone who I can't get away from, or someone abuses me. It's like, okay, well, we can work away from that by cultivating good relationship skills and, increasing communication through partners or whatever. I'm just using that because I've actually had, I've actually seen that, or whatever. So yeah, hell would be stuck in the middle of the ocean with a bunch of great white sharks around me, and there's no way to get out. Yeah, that would be terrible.
But that's still, to me, that doesn't even touch what life is without God. Like, we have
It's terrifying.
Yeah, we have no, nothing to compare it with. Like hell, true hell versus heaven. We, like, that, and And in the same way, we have no words to describe heaven. Like, to me, all those, you always talk about, a lot about the light spectrum and all the different lights. And that, colors might taste. We might be able to taste colors, or, all these different things in heaven that we can't, like, grasp in our finite minds. It'll be greater than we can ever imagine.
I hope so.
But on the
I'm
other
just
hand,
hoping for like endless buffet.
My
bar is very low. God's like, really?
That's
really?
right. God's like, and that
fine,
quote,
eat for a few thousand years and then we'll go explore space.
What's that quote from C.S. Lewis about how we on Earth are satisfied with sex and drink and all this other stuff, and yet we have so much more spiritually that the buffet is right there before us, and we're satisfied with this over there. Like this kid who's playing in the mud, and his father's saying, "Come to the ocean where there's seashells and stuff," but he wants to stay here in the muck and the mud and the mire, and not go. C.S. Lewis. I'm pretty sure it's C.S.
I like
Lewis.
C.S. Lewis. But to push back a little bit on that though, like the whole Garden of Eden was literally that though. Romp around with the opposite sex. Pick your fruit, hang out, whittle a log, or like it was very
not hot or cold. Yeah, it would be perfect.
What you just described. So I don't like when religious people put those down, because it's like, no, those are like very good things, like really good things. They are going to bring a lot of joy and fulfillment to your life doing these things.
Doing what things? Say again.
Sex, eating good food. Like Kelsey's so good about that, of enjoying the food. She really takes in, she doesn't just gobble it up and, what the heck did that taste like? She's like, oh, try this. It's got a little bit of dill and a little bit of salt or whatever. And it's like really experiencing, and it's a physical thing. Food doesn't really have too much to do. The lack of food has more to do with spirituality than the consumption of food, lack of consumption. But I'm not saying that disregarding the spiritual, because I think there's an important part, fasting, abstaining from, when you do ayahuasca, you have like 2 or 3 weeks of not eating good food, almost like a Daniel fast, no sort of carnal relations, no alcohol, no drugs, anything like that. You are purifying yourself because you're going to the spirit world. And there are horror stories of people who took it lackadaisically and not a good time for them. And it's like, well, you do that to yourself. But I don't know. I just like to push back, and like the Puritans, I think, had a lot to do with that, saying like sex is bad, food is not good, or the worship of food, which is like, I agree with you. But the enjoyment or whatever, like I've had some of my best memories around food and people with, it's like, it's not bad. It's like, this is good.
I don't think he's saying it's bad. It's just right here. And here you could be satisfied. If you can be satisfied with this, then these are just the extras. But the extras
are pretty good. That's what I'm saying. The extras are pretty good. And I'm not saying that the other stuff up above is not good. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Good stuff. We're pretty far in. So there's a couple more things. Obviously, tons of things I'd like to discuss, and so we might have to have an episode 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. But one thing I really wanted to ask about, because you've talked a lot about your early years, being a mother, meeting dad, that kind of stuff. But there's one particular person in your life who I've heard you talk about a lot. And I didn't know her for very long, but I knew her a little bit. But you had a much bigger exposure to her, and that's Helen Gehring, right? Gehring. And so I think she is a pretty prominent figure in your life, and I'd just like to hear some of your thoughts on her. What was she like when you were younger versus when she was older, when I kind of knew her as great-grandma? I just want to hear your thoughts and
she was probably
memories.
My favorite person, like, ever. She was I remember my mom, when I was little, and I would get mad, and I would say, nobody liked me but Grandma and Jesus, or Jesus and Grandma. It was the only 2 people that liked me. or whatever, but she was a definite mentor in my life. She did not have it easy. She was they had cows and they milked, and she worked very hard. She liked to sew, and my mom and dad, your grandma and grandpa, when grandpa had a job in Tulsa, he traveled a lot, and he would go to all these different countries, and he would bring me dolls back from each country. That's kind of a side note. So I have a doll collection that means a lot to me from these different countries. But sometimes my mom would go along, grandma would go along, and if we did, we stayed with grandma and grandpa, Helen and Orland. And so we had experiences there. Now, grandpa's mom and dad were close, so we would go visit, but almost always we stayed the night, and, with grandma Helen and grandpa Orland. And they involved us in it, when it was time to milk, we went to the milk barn, and we would feed the cats with grandma. And grandpa, I remember when the calves would be little, we would go, he had these pens lined up, and when they would feed the calves, and they had these buckets with a nipple coming out, and they'd hang the buckets. And before that, you could stick your 2 fingers in the milk, and then the calf would suck on your fingers. We thought that was great. And we helped them lay irrigation pipes, and grandpa would let us drive. I mean, we were itty bitty. We weren't that big, but we would drive, sit up on the tractor, and then he and grandma would pick up these huge pipes. The irrigation pipes were, at least as long as this room, if not a little longer. And so they would pick them up, put them down, and push them together. Like, that's hard work. And grandma would do that. She was so kind. One thing I remember about grandma was I don't remember whose brother it was. It was either her or grandpa's brother, your great grandpa's. And he was married several times. And the last lady that he was married to, I think the other ones died, but the last one he was married to was just cantankerous and just like hard to be around and not nice. And she was always kind. And even when this lady was dying, said Helen was always nice. Other people were like, would get upset and mad or whatever, but Helen was always kind to her. And I always remember one time Nikki was little itty bitty, and they had a grate out in front of their porch so that when they came in, they could wipe their feet in the dirt.
Remember that.
You do?
Yeah.
I dropped her one time on the grate when she was little, and she kind of had a tic-tac-toe thing here on her forehead. She was little, and I was devastated. I wasn't that big either. I was probably, I don't know, she was probably born in 70, I don't know, 3 or something. So I was probably, it would have to be after that, 78 maybe. So I was probably 11 or 12, something. I wasn't that old. And I just went into the barn, not the milk barn. They had a milk barn, and then they had a hay barn. And then they kind of had a place where there was more hay. And I just went in there and just cried and cried and cried. But I remember Grandma coming over, and she just put her arm around me, and she's like, "It's okay. She's all right. She'll be fine. It's not a problem." But I just cried. And that's what I remember most about my grandma is her love. Like, she was so kind. She was so kind, and she was always sharing with others. She was always selfless. We made that book for her. You guys were little. But I asked the family, like, what are your memories of Grandma? And like Wayne said, he would drive into the yard, and she knew that he liked cherry pie or whatever it was. And so she would get busy immediately and make a cherry pie. So when he would come in for lunch, here was his favorite pie. And she just did kind things for people all the time.
Very personal.
Yes.
Personalized kindness almost.
And while we were there, I remember her teaching us to play solitaire. She taught me how to wrap presents. Every Christmas or whenever I wrap a present, she'd always say, you have to bring up the sides and make it really tight. You have to make it as tight as you can, and then, fold on the corners. And boy, when you bring it up, you make it tight. Put your tape on and turn around. She would make us Christmas presents, Christmas ornaments. Every year all of us got an ornament. You kids did too, you know. Everybody got an ornament for Christmas, handmade. You know, she, in her later life, had fibromyalgia and just a lot of pain. In fact, Grandma, last time I was home, your grandma, they still have some things they're going through, and one was her diary. And so I got
digitize it.
I got a stack of paper. I just took a part of it, and then Mom or Grandma took part of it, and Jen and Janet are taking part of it because it's like a big stack, and it's going to take a long time to read through. But it's interesting, though, that she was tired quite often. Like, she would write in her diary, I'm exhausted. I did this or that. Or so we're all going to go through and kind of get the highlights out of this diary. And a lot of it's, you know, like you were saying before, like so-and-so came over for dinner, or we went over so-and-so's and helped them with their garden or whatever. So a lot of it's kind of benign, everyday stuff, but some of it is interesting, and a lot of it was like, I'm so tired, because she was doing all this stuff for everybody else. And she would there's a funny story of my grandpa Orland was in the 500 Mennonite men's chorus. Oh,
really?
My goodness,
I didn't know that.
And we ought to look that up, because they were.
Did you hear? Do they have recordings of the? Oh.
Well, yeah, I think so.
Oh.
I think Grandma might, if nobody else does.
Wow.
But we ought to look it up, because it was stunning, amazing. But there's a funny story that she had to take 3 men to town or something to sing or practice or something. Why there were 3 men and she was driving, I don't know. But the story is there was kind of a hill in the road, a bump in the road that was pretty big on the way to town, and the story is she was going so fast that she went airborne.
I totally believe that. I completely believe that.
I think the story got a little bit more exaggerated every time.
I don't know. I've ridden with Grandma, and
well, this is great grandma.
Oh, now I know where Kathy gets it.
Great grandma was driving.
I know where I get it. I drive fast.
So
turn your mic a little. You can hit your mic.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
So anyway, but she was fun, and she was just so kind. And like, as I look back, and she had a lot of hard times too, I think. Like, I remember great grandpa, or Orland, your great grandpa, saying, well, she's really good at drawing, drawing flies, as a joke and stuff. But I think she took it very well. And I think she had some hard times, and she was so strong. And she was like, well, and then her daughter, the first daughter, was, I don't know if she was, she wasn't stillborn, but she lived 5 hours. Mm-hmm. Josephine was her name. So that was before Grandma.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They had a daughter that died, and she was 5 hours old. And then, I just can't even imagine when she was pregnant with Grandma, the fear she must have had that is this baby going to die? And then their youngest daughter I was just reading about her just the other day, when Grandma gave me some stuff, but her name was Bev, and she married a guy named Frank, and the very next day they were killed in a car accident, both of them.
The day after their wedding.
Yes.
Yeah.
The day after their wedding. And, I guess that was, Grandma said they were very worried about great grandma. Your grandma said they were very worried about great grandma Helen.
I was going to ask, was there any diary entries about, her name was Bev. Was there any diary entries?
I have not. That's a good question. I'm trying to think what the years were that I took. I think they were in the 70s, and she died in 69. I think she died in 69, because I was born in 66, so I was like 3 years old. And I had a lot of trouble with death for a while. I don't know if you knew that.
Because of Bev?
Grandma said that, that she thought.
Well, how old would you have been?
I was about 3.
You remember it?
No.
Oh.
But for a long time, like I did not want to, like a funeral home. I don't want to go in there. I don't want to have anything to do with, even in high school.
Seems natural.
When my grandma Agnes died, I had to leave. I had to leave the funeral home. I was just like, I don't. And Grandma Kathy said, I think that is from your experience with Bev, because you were little enough that you saw everybody weeping and crying, but you couldn't, you were 3 years old.
Yeah.
You couldn't really process that.
Sure.
I've kind of worked through that, and now once been with somebody when he died, and with Shannon, and another one the few hours before he died, John, and I wasn't scared at all. Like, it wasn't a scary thing. It was peaceful. So I'm much better about that. But she, I remember her saying that she told her kids, do not allow Bev's death, this shocking, death. Here's this huge celebration of a wedding, and then the very next day, you have to start planning a funeral. But she always hung on to God through that, and she's like, do not let this, and Grandpa too, deter your relationship with God.
That goes back to what we talked about. How could you? I could never.
Yeah.
But with God.
Yeah. So I just thought she hung the moon. I thought she was amazing, and it was so interesting too. I will say, one of my cousins, I made a comment about my precious grandma, like my grandma, and it was her grandma too. But it was amazing, because she made a comment that was like, oh, really? You thought that about grandma? And she did not have the same feelings. And so I don't know if it was because I was firstborn. I was the firstborn cousin on both sides, the first grandchild, that she and I really connected, or if it was because we had the same likes. She liked to cook, and I liked to cook, and she liked to sew, and I liked to sew, and she helped me through a lot of things, and she would read to us, and I can still remember the creak in her rocking chair when we'd be up on her lap and she would be reading to us and stuff. So
about that, I've talked to Casey about with Dad and you. Excuse me. And because sometimes I tell him about Dad, and he's like, that's not how I feel about Dad. I'm like, what? And then after thinking about it forever, I kind of understood, we didn't have the same dad. Mm-hmm. I had Dad, from here to here, and then Casey doesn't know him,
right?
And then Casey had a totally different experience. Came in one time. Colin told me, he said, the first memory I have of Benny, and he told me this memory, and I was like, that's incredible. The first memory you have of someone really sets the tone, good or bad, right or wrong, true or false. But it's the first impression. And but that's what's happening with Helen, is you had her these years, and then maybe she got tired, and then the cousin comes in and it's like, I always knew Grandma was tired, and it's like, well, the previous 10 or 5 she wasn't like that, so essentially you have a different grandma, but you each have a different perspective on her grandma. So.
Sure. And she's a lot younger, so she didn't get to see, like you said, the time Jeff and I had with her. And we had a lot of one-on-one when we'd stay for a whole week, and some of these other, now, Nikki and Julia and Polly, they were right there. So they had a lot of connection. So we were in Tulsa. Yeah. So we didn't, but sometimes when that happens, then you go and you have that intimate time, because you're night and day. Mm-hmm. When you stay up till whenever, then you get up in the morning and you see, you're not at a hotel, and you come over here all ready to go, and you're not walking upstairs and your hair's all crazy. So anyway, she was a huge, and if I would say I want to be like somebody, I want to be like her. And I just never saw hate in her. I always saw love. I just admired her immensely. And she didn't have an easy life. I mean, she had a tough time, a lot.
Yeah, I've heard lots of good stories about her, and obviously Grandma Kathy has a different perspective. She was the daughter, but they're pretty, as far as I've been told, similar, to your experience.
Yeah.
So I definitely had that written down because I wanted to ask you about that, just because I know she's a very special person to you, and you have a lot of memories and experiences with her that maybe have never been written down or recorded or anything. So thank you for sharing.
I just feel like when Abraham Lincoln, I think, said that no one is poor who's had a godly mother, and she was the foundation. And I mean, the next generation back was the preacher, so she was a preacher's kid. And even generations back there were preachers, but she had this foundation that was just so powerful. And you can see it in her 3 daughters that are still living, Jen and Janet and Mom, Grandma. And it's just she just had a love about her that was just amazing. And she adored you kids. That one picture of Casey and her, yeah, she's looking down and Casey's looking up, and I just she stopped what one thing, and that's what Grandma Gehring did for you guys and Grandpa, especially Grandma, though. When you came along, she would drop what she's doing and she would focus on you. There would be things that need to be done, but they can wait. Here are my 2 grandsons. And then Olivia, Carly, and Daniel too. It's like, I will sit down on the floor and play with you, and I will read you books, and I will rock you to sleep, and I will run outside and go sledding or whatever. I mean, I will, even when you guys got older, she's like planned every time we came, there would be like, we're going to Hutch today and we're going to go to the salt deal, or we're going to go, we planned this and that. And what I'm doing goes to the side. You are my focus. And that's what I got from Grandma. That's what, and she just loved you. And like, she had that one that it's in our house, it's in my house now, that, the wisdom one, or the
cobwebs.
No, that Jen made that. But the one about, and I strive to know the difference. I will accept the things that I cannot change.
The prayer of serenity.
I will change the things I can change, accept the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. And she always had that posted. She always had a thing that said, yes, I can, to encourage, and I know cousins that have said, I remember that. That's
a good tattoo idea for you.
On Grandma's wall, yes, I can. And I'd be like, yes, I can, And so one thing I wanted to add too about the thought process we were talking about, about how all those thoughts go through your mind. And something that has helped me is memorizing scripture. And as soon as those negative thoughts come in, I can go that road. Boy, how many times have I gone that road? Or I can say, okay, I'm stopping. And when I start to quote scripture, all of a sudden things get better, and that whole thought goes away. So that's what I'm doing this year. I'm like, the things that I know, like Beth Moore said, pick 10 things, 10 verses. And then when you get stuck, when you're like, what's going on here? Then you can say, I know that my Redeemer lives. I know that his love is new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. I know. And then once you get to 10, once you're like, okay, I know that greater is he who is in me than he that is in the world. I know whom I've had believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I've committed unto him against that day. I know when I resist the devil, he must leave. So all these things that I keep, when you put that in your mind. I read a thing the other day too about leadership, and about a great leader has things in, or what makes a great leader is what is in their mind, the thoughts that they have rolling around. And so like, I just took on an IF group, which is a Christian it's not a Bible study or anything like that. It's just a group of women that get together and we share a meal and we share our lives, what we're doing, and struggles, victories, anything you want to share. And then we have 4 questions that we discuss. And so I just took the leadership there. But now it's like, I better have, scripture in my mind and be not, off in left field, not knowing what's going on. So anyway, it's pretty cool.
Scripture says guard your heart. I always kind of picture like heart as your spirit, which would be part of your mind in a way. So I think about that a lot. Yep. The same 4 questions at your IF group, or is it weekly changes?
Monthly. It's only once a month, and
but different.
Yep. Last month it was about world, like how do you see God working in the world, and it had 4 questions about that. And this was about this month was about sharing your faith, and like what challenges do you have sharing your faith. And it's great to talk to other people. And when you like some people are like, oh, I just go out and talk to people or whatever. I'm like, I don't. I'm like, that's hard.
Yeah.
But if God told you to do it, I remember one time at Sears, I was picking up, when they still had a Sears store, I was picking up something, and there was a person sitting next to me, and I just felt like God said, talk to this person. Ask him if he knows me. I don't know if it was a guy or a girl. I was so scared. I was like, and I didn't do it.
Oh, man.
And I got up and left, and my heart was pounding, and I'm just like, I didn't do it. And I've never forgotten that. And it's to the point where, like you were saying before, take the lesson. Like, don't keep beating yourself up for that failure.
Yeah.
Take the lesson in that and how you felt that, you might as well just, if it's embarrassing or whatever, talk to that person and see. I mean, maybe they were crying. I don't know. I was so scared I didn't even know what to do.
Sure.
And take the lesson of that and say, do you want to feel like that again?
Yeah.
So next time, I usually reach out, even if I feel like an idiot, and say something.
It's I don't know if you listened to the podcast with me and Wes Davis, but I asked him something along the lines of like, how can you, hear or respond to the Spirit in the way you do? Because I'm sure you've heard the stories of him calling somebody that is committing suicide in the moment of committing suicide.
Yeah.
And, phone rings. And his answer was pretty interesting. He's like, I don't always get it right, but I always act, in the way. It's
Good
sometimes
answer,
sometimes somebody answers, goes, I'm doing fine. He goes, I felt, he might not even say it. He might just be like, oh, just seeing what you're up to.
Yeah.
But personally, he felt,
I need to do something.
yeah, he thought he heard a voice within him, or a motivation within him to act.
Yes.
And rather than be like, should I or should I not? He just does it, That, paraphrasing again, but pretty much what he said.
I like that.
Yeah,
Act,
I did too.
do something.
One time I was in Pittsburgh. I think I was probably first year of college or something, and saw this guy, homeless guy, and I was like, dang, he's probably hungry. So I went to McDonald's real quick, just bought some food, and I was like, hey, are you hungry or whatever? He's like, what? And I'm like, I got some food. He goes, I'm just out here walking. And I was like, oh, okay. Have a good day. And whatever,
That's awesome, though.
Thankfully, he was,
Yeah, you took the time
to
go do that.
He just should have gone to the barber. That's probably what, he just looked a little unkempt. So, but yeah.
But just think of your brother. I mean, and the times when he was on his mission trip, whatever, to Colorado, and he said some people came to him, and I just like, oh, thank you.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a humorous thing, and I was kind of embarrassed, but overall it was harmless. You know, it's like, whatever. I thought I heard you, Lord. I thought I heard you tell me do that. Guess not. Guess I'll eat this McDonald's.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of you. That's great that you did that and tried to be obedient.
I tried.
Yeah.
So we've covered quite a bit. We're at 3 hours. The last thing that I'd like to talk about is your book that you're finishing up.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, tell us about your book.
Well, it's really written for my grandchildren that I do not yet have.
Sorry.
Yeah. But I just wanted, like, I thought I would have loved for my great grandparents. Now, some of them came over on those ships. What would it be like to sit down and ask them all those, like a podcast? Yeah. Ask them questions. How did you do it? Were you scared? What did you pray for? And I know sometimes, like, even in our history of our country, I've heard of, like, things happened and there were, like, the enemy, I don't know, whoever coming to these people, and they prayed, and all of a sudden there's a dust storm that saved them, flat out saved them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what were the miracles that you saw, great grandma and great grandpa? How did God work in your life? How did you see him in your life? How, where were the difficult times that he helped you through, and how did he help you, and how did you hear him? How I wanted to ask that. And so I got to thinking, I don't want my grandchildren to wonder, or my great-grandchildren, or anyone. Like, there might be people listening to this podcast. I don't know. I don't know who would be very interested in me, but I know my grandpa and grandma prayed for me. That was another thing about Grandma Helen. When she had that fibromyalgia, she would tell us that she would lie down, she would hurt so bad. But she said, I went through my children and my grandchildren by name, one by one, and prayed for each one. And I would lay there and pray. And I'm like, thank you. I don't know if you remember when I sang that song for her. You and Casey were there. She had already had a stroke, and she was not doing as well. And but I sang that song, thank you for praying for me. Thank you for praying for me. I never could repay the time you spent down on your knees. And I know that because the next verse is, where I am today is because you took the time to pray. And I don't want, I don't know what's going to happen to me tomorrow or on our way home. I don't know. But I want you and Casey and your kids to the 1,000th generation to know somebody prayed for you. Somebody prayed for you when they didn't even know your name. They didn't even know your name, but they knew that you were coming, and they knew. And I've prayed for anyone who picks up that book. So not even my grandchildren, some people might pick it up and just start reading it, and that they have been prayed for, that somebody prayed, somebody cares, somebody loves them, that they might not even know. Maybe I'll be dead and gone. But that was my purpose, to write that book so that somebody would know that God is real and that he's worth following and he's worth the time. And it takes time. Like when you get to know somebody, it takes time. You have to sit down, you ask them questions, you listen. And a lot of people, including me, I wish I knew what year it was. I usually do a word for the year. Mm-hmm. And the year my word was listen, which wasn't that long ago, maybe 8 years or something. Changed my whole life, changed my whole perspective on God. And I'm like, oh God, I've been all the time doing all the talking, and all I did was ask for stuff. I might praise you some, but apologize some, but ask for forgiveness. But most of the time it's like, I need this, and this, and this. Remember this.
Especially this.
Yeah. Instead of listening, and when you sit down and are quiet, well, you people call it meditating, whatever, but I have to focus. And I put him on a throne. I want to see, in my mind, your throne, your majesty and your goodness. And sometimes I think of Jesus sitting in a chair, with Mary and Martha, mm-hmm. and Martha's making the food and getting everything ready, and Mary's like, I want to hear what you have to say. I want to know what you have to say. And so I imagine myself sitting there like Mary and he's in a chair and like I'm sitting on the floor and looking at him like, what do you want to tell me today? You know, what wisdom do you have or whatever? And, but I want my kids to know and my grandchildren to know that God. And I know so many people, one of my dear friends, had a terrible father, abusive, terrible father. So her whole picture of God is this mean person in heaven with a club waiting to knock you, whack you when you do something wrong. And I'm like, my heart goes out to her because I'm like, no, that's not what I see. But I've had a great father, I've had a loving father. And so it's easier for me to see him as a loving father. And there's many people that have not had good fathers. So, they have different perspectives, but I want people and my children, grandchildren to know that there is a God and to look to him and to ask him questions, ask him, I don't understand this. How many times do I look at the Bible? I'm like, I don't know what that means. Can you please tell me what that means? And it might not be that day. It might be next week or next year or next 2 years, but sooner or later, something will come up and be like, oh, that's what that means. And I feel like God has answered, but I have to listen and I have to sit quietly. So that year, I try to spend an hour in the morning, not always, but for the first half, I promised or tried to listen because I'm like, I always did all the talking. So I will listen first and then put out my needs or requests or whatever. So that changed everything. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's so much that I missed of you, God, because I was too busy with inward focus. Like, this is what I need. This is what I want. And you can help me get that. But I missed out on this whole relationship and his side. And so anyway, I want people to know that. And there's funny stories in there. There's one about us and the mouse poop. And there's stories about Grandma Helen. There's a story about her and permission to just cry. Sometimes, the Twyla Paris song is about the warrior is a child. And sometimes as a child of God, you need to just drop your sword and just cry, crawl up on his lap and just let him rock you, just cry. And then get back down and go again. Continue on, valiant warrior. And I want people to be blessed. That's why I wrote it. So everybody who picks that up has been prayed for and reads those words have been prayed that, God would work through those words in their hearts and minds and bring them great blessing. So it's called Signs of the Savior. So
great title.
It'll not be on your bookshelf in the next, I think I'm probably getting 50 copies or something, because it really, my whole focus is my children and grandchildren. But
what if someone wanted to buy a copy?
Well, if somebody wants to buy one, I'm getting 50 and I wanted to give one to my cousins and, of course, you guys. And if they want one, then let me know. I mean, people have already told me that they want one. I'm probably going to take a hit on the money because since you only get 50 copies, it's like $30 a book. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's going to be expensive. So I'll probably, if people want them, I'll probably sell them for, I don't know, $20 and just eat the $10. $20 is a lot for a book. I might have to sell them for $15. I don't know. But that wasn't my intent, and so I'm not going to get 500 copies.
Yeah.
So, because I don't know what I'd do with them all. I'm probably just going to, I don't know, give them all away or something.
Start a TikTok, and then you're going to talk about your book every day, and then you're going to sign it for all the audience members, and then you'll be a New York Times bestseller.
It's a labor of love, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know why I'm even doing this.
That's good. That's part of the creative process.
Yeah.
If you don't have those, then you're delusional.
Sometimes.
You have to go back and forth. This is the greatest book ever written. this book sucks. I did that with the documentary.
It's just, I mean, I don't know who's going to want to read this, but the times that I have shared it with people, they've been blessed. And so I'm like, well, if I can bless my family and a few others too, then I have some undergirding for the publication of it. Thankfully, my parents are helping a little bit for that. So, because Grandma Helen helped her, and so the gift goes on. Mm-hmm. So I guess when you publish your book, or Casey publishes his,
Casey does need to write a book.
I will help you.
The act of creation is similar to listening to the spirit, because sometimes it's like, why am I doing this? And it's like that's not your job to know why. I think with a lot of times that we try to do that, like, who's going to read this? Like, that's not why you're doing this.
Right, exactly.
You just need to create this, and then you'll figure it'll be revealed to you once you've done it. I'll open door number 2, or
right.
whatever. So it's nice to remember that. It's like, if it's on your heart to create, like, just do it.
Exactly.
Don't really worry about who's going to read or watch.
Exactly.
So.
And I would say too, do it then. Like, do it soon.
Yeah.
Because I know God has given me stuff, and I haven't written it down, or I haven't gone in my prayer closet or desk, whatever, and written it down, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, what was that?
Yeah.
I don't remember what that
Plenty
was about.
of those.
So I would tell people, take the time, write it down then. Even if you can't get it word for word, I mean, write as much as you can. And then when you go back and this sentence needs to be moved or whatever, then you can do that later. But at least you have it on paper, and this is
That's one one aspect of many that I love about Kelsey, is that sometimes we'll just be talking, and I'll just, like, she's like, oh, he's got an idea, and she's kind of come to the point where she doesn't interrupt. I roll my eyes back in my head and I scribble it down. All right, what were we talking about? Yeah. And just because I've done it, I've not acted on it, and then I'm like, that was a really good idea. Yeah. Maybe it wasn't. I've written down some things where I'm like, I took the time to write that down.
And even beside the bed, sometimes at 2 a.m., you're like, sitting straight up, and I need to write this
many
down.
Times. Yeah, many times.
So.
Well, this has been a really fun podcast. I know you were nervous about it, but I hope you had a good time.
I did. Thank you.
Yeah, you're a great speaker and storyteller, and it's nice to hear your side of things that I don't really know much about, or just kind of hear your ideas unfiltered, even because a lot of times we'll debate and stuff. So maybe this is a lesson to me to let you talk a little bit more and understand your perspective, because it's been fun and revealing to me. So thank you for sharing. And
thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I've been interested in your podcast for a long time, and I know you're a good host, and
thank you.
You do a lot of wonderful things. I know I read on your B&B, like, what a great host you are there, and I know you're doing great things in your life, and I'm proud of you.
All right. Thank you.
I, bless you with peace and love in your life, and joy, great joy in your life. And I want the best for you, of course. When I see you go through difficulties, it breaks my heart, and my heart goes with you. And know that whatever happens to me, if I die tomorrow, that I've asked God to remember these prayers every day of your life, and every day of your kids' life, and your kids' kids, and these prayers that I've prayed for you, that God, and they wouldn't just end, but that every single day God will remember. And I know He will. And I know you will do great things for His kingdom. I tell everybody, I'm like, at some point he's going to be a preacher. It may not be the conventional way, but you're going to do great things, I know, for Him.
Well,
so.
Thank you for those blessings. And thank you for praying for me and my brother and my dad and my,
yes.
Everybody else. So.
Absolutely. Yep. Pray for Dad too. Absolutely.
I love you very much.
I
Thank
love
you for loving me and praying over me and taking your time out of a beautiful Saturday afternoon.
At 11 o'clock.
You wanted to go to Atwood's or something. We still can. But yes, thank you for taking the time to come on. I'd love to do it again. As you see, I have a ton of questions. And now that I have a little bit more of a foundation of some of the things, we can cover, more some of these other topics and stuff. So, and I'm assuming you're going to go on Casey's podcast, which would be a great,
if he asks.
Yeah, which would be a great different flavor. He operates a little bit differently than I do. So if that does happen, I look forward to it. But besides that, I love you very much. You're the best mom in the whole world. It's been, I love you very much.
I love you most. I love you more and most.
I love you too. So yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
I don't know how to wrap this up.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to find out more about my mother's book, she's very active on Facebook. You can message her there, ask questions, or put in a pre-order. You heard how much it was. Don't pay $20. Pay the full price and a tip. And if you do read it, you should maybe do a review of it, a written review, a video review, anything like that. Besides that, my mother is a wonderful person. Please treat her nicely if you do see her, and go to church. That's where you'll find her at Grace Community in Riverton,
Everybody's
Kansas.
welcome.
Everybody's welcome. And I love you very much. Thanks for coming on.
I love you too. Thank
All right.
you.
Everybody have a great week. Peace.
Bye.
SciFi